Alright. More Misericorde. Last time, there was tons of lesbians. A surprising amount of lesbians. I feel like 70% of the plot thus far has been lesbians, and the other 30% has been, like, surgery, and I guess a little Satan. Just a tiny bit of Satan, you know, as a treat. But it's mostly lesbians. And also Hedwig doesn't know what gay people are. Load. There we go. All right, I gotta get my reading voice on. Okay. The others were making their way downstairs as well. Catherine was wheeling Flora out of her room, already looking slightly exasperated by whatever topic the younger woman was bombarding her with questions about. Who knew Flora was this talkative? I guess when forced to, like, have time with others, she will talk someone's ear off. But, you know, most of the time she isolates herself, I guess. We made eye contact, and Catherine gave me a rueful grin. I attempted to return one, but my heart wasn't in it. The conversation with Moira had been pleasant in the end, but here in the hallway, seeing Flora, all I could think was, why? Why had she endangered us all? Oh, wow. Wow! I was literally 60 seconds away from the end of chapter! I was agonizing last stream, like, man, I wanted to end the stream at the end of a chapter. I was like, man, I'm gonna have to stop here. And it was just 5 lines away. Fucking classic. Dinner was delicious as usual. Darcy had provided a veritable bounty of duck once again, and the vegetables from the garden were as wonderful as ever. Everything was slathered in a bit more gravy than I'd gotten used to, though. I dared not ask why, as I didn't want to offend Darcy. Luckily, I did not have to. The superior, who had finally gotten dressed, I noticed, broached the topic for me. You have outdone yourself, Sister Darcy. Never would I have guessed we were about to enter winter with a meal this fresh. Thank you. It is all down to the sauce. Oh my god. The sauce. I wasn't sure if the ingredients were at their best, so I gave the gravy a little extra attention and used more of it. Apologies if anyone wasn't expecting a wet meal. There was a murmur of reassurance. Everyone had enjoyed themselves thoroughly. It was fantastic, Darce. I could not help but notice that Eustace was sitting on the opposite side of the table today, and several seats away from what could be described as across from her friend. It's good to tuck in before winter. A few months of pottage and dried meats, I suppose it's always good for me in the end. I hate cooking during the cold months. Far fewer options. They're all cold months here. Laura had to be seated in the corner of the room with her legs sticking out somewhat awkwardly towards the table. Catherine sat on a stool next to her, helping spoon food into her mouth. Too true, Flora. You know what I mean. Charity's right. Lots of pottage for a while, I'm afraid. I will do my best to get creative with the meats, but there's only so much to be done with salted beef. I love it, honestly. I'd eat dried fruits all year round if I could. I mean, there is something to be said about jerky. You do, don't you? Catherine called to Margaret from the side of the room. Unable to stomp on her friend's foot in retaliation, Margaret grimaced and jerked her head towards her superior. The superior had not noticed Catherine's joke about midnight snacking habits, however, or if she had, she did not care enough to chastise Margaret directly. We will all need to be responsible this winter. While I have ordered more supplies for the Abbey, we have an example to set for our new oblates. New oblates? Oh my heavens, what a surprise. We didn't know! We didn't know! Everyone started chattering at once until the superior lifted a weary hand to quiet the room down. 2 new sisters will be joining us soon. They should be arriving in a week's time, just before the snow will make travel impractical. How old are they? Yes, an important question. Around your age, actually, Sister Flora. Huh, so 2 younger nuns. A surprising cry of disappointment went up around the room. Behave. I expect you all to make them feel welcome. No hazing. No pranks, etc., etc. The superior still seemed tired. I had heard this same speech from her on the chapel on my first day out of my cell, but she had far more vigor then. Is it too late to change their minds? I agree. Oh, give it a rest. She stood up suddenly. If you would all excuse me. Damn, she's kind of feeling defeated lately. Like, a lot has been taken out of her. Beth also just brought me coffee. I'm gonna drink some. Oh yeah. I needed the warmth for my throat. She began piling up a plate with food, then made for the door. Superior, are you feeling well? I am just fine, thank you, Moira. The bishop is feeling ill, and I must bring him his meal in his quarters. That is all. We haven't seen the bishop. Where the fuck is that guy? We haven't seen him in this entire volume. She left swiftly. Everyone in the room exchanged knowing glances. His quarters. Not subtle, is she? Behave! Now, let's all be respectful. Is it disrespectful to point out the obvious? His quarters are her quarters. It's none of our business what those two are getting up to. Hang on. Huh? Wait, what? Is that why she's so... Given that this is the 1400s, I'm wondering also if it's, you know, if she has any say in the matter. She doesn't pry into what we get up to, does she? I wouldn't dare judge, but it is a bit funny. He looks like a bit of a bore. A bore, more like. She flattened her nose to reveal her nostrils and made a revolting sound, then nearly fell out of her wheelbarrow in a fit of giggles. Oh, grow up, you lot! I don't understand. Nor should you. Come, Sister Hedwig. I must speak with you about something. Hedwig? Catherine shot me a steely look from across the table as I complied with Angela's request. I didn't particularly want to spend time with Sister Angela, but the atmosphere in the room was so awful I actually found the idea preferable. Very well, Sister Angela. I excused myself from the table and joined Angela, who had already made her way to the door. Everyone muttered disapprovingly as the door swung shut behind us. I followed Angela a little way into the garden until she was satisfied of our distance from the others. The key? I can find it. Angela arched her eyebrow. For a moment, I considered showing her the knife I'd retrieved. I did not want to push my luck, however. Angela had no interest in hearing any ghostly theories. But I'm going to go back and look again. Maybe this works to our advantage as well, just as you said. If we spot someone with a key... Angela suddenly gripped me by the shoulders. She did not shout, but she was terrifying all the same. Whoa, hi! I need you to take this seriously, Hedwig. A missing book, a wayward key, lives could be at stake. Do you understand that? We could be in grave danger. 2 new oblates will be here soon. Is it fair for our house to be so out of order? Should they walk into the lion's den unawares? Surely the superior could turn them away and then what? Interrupt their service to Christ? Leave us to fumble around in our own dark nightmare? This problem must be solved, Hedwig. It cannot be put off or left as is. We have a duty to God, our new oblate, and ourselves. I cannot fathom why the superior entrusted such a monumental responsibility to someone like you, but she did. Please rise to the occasion. For your own sake, if not everybody else's. Her fingers dug tightly into my flesh. Please. Yes, Sister Angela. I'm very sorry. Apologies are appreciated, but unhelpful. Actions, Hedwig. Actions will convince me you understand. I could apologize to the superior first and foremost. Losing something so important, I would not worry her with this right now. You saw how she was in the refectory. I respect you for suggesting apologizing, but action. I nodded. I'd imagined plenty of punishments for myself before I had lost the key. I did not need to conjure up anymore. God, Angela's kind of hot, huh? Like she's kind of hot. Angela relinquished her grip and patted my shoulders in a way I assumed she thought would be reassuring and attempted to smooth out my wrinkled sleeves. Tried to think. Where did you last see the key? The thinking room! Bear with me. Well, that was easy. I had used it to open the door to my cell. It was more difficult than I'd expected, but once I was in the room, I'd occupied myself for a few moments, then I was interrupted by an intruder and hid under the bed. But I had already checked underneath the bed, and on top of it, for that matter. For a split second, I panicked, imagining that I could have flung it out the window by accident when Catherine had spotted me from below, but I had been holding the empty book that had been left on my mattress in both hands at that moment. The intruder. My stomach dropped. Was it that simple? I'd entered my cell, closed the door behind me, felt overcome by a need to touch the stone. I had needed 2 hands to strip down, and when I no longer needed to hide, I'd been distracted by the empty book and Catherine's invasion of my solitude. The door had still been unlocked when I returned to search for the missing key before dinner. Ergo, the intruder was the only remaining explanation. Music, by the way, goddamn. That music reminded me of Final Fantasy Tactics Advance. Whoever it was who came into my cell while I was investigating it, she must have taken the key. A likely explanation if there was no key to be found in the cell prior to supper. So, who was it? I haven't the faintest idea. That is not true. I ruled out Charity and Marta for you, did I not? Yes. And it could not have been Flora. I saw Catherine outside while I was in my cell. Angela looked quizzical. I prayed she did not press for further details. That is curious. Nonetheless, I did see her and Margaret wandering away from the cloister around that time. So we can remove them from our list of suspects as well. Who else is unaccounted for? Eustace, Darcy. Well, I did walk past the dorms on the way to my cell, and they seemed occupied by their conversation. We cannot rule either of them out entirely, but they did seem to be embroiled for most of the afternoon. I suppose I haven't the faintest idea where Adela was. I can help you there. She was assisting Marta in the cellars. I know because I had just seen her when I came across Catherine and Margaret dragging you around by the scruff of your neck. I nodded to express my gratitude as vaguely as I could, not wanting to linger on the subject. And Moira was assisting Flora earlier today. And that wheelbarrow is rather squeaky. So it is. And the superior was occupied. Indeed. But I furrowed my brow. I came out of my haze of thought to gawp at Angela, who looked almost as intense as the night she had menaced me with her dagger. That only leaves you. She slowly reached into the recesses of her left sleeve, and for a moment I was worried I would see her blade flash again, but instead she produced the missing key. What the fuck? Angela, what the hell is your game? She held it in front of me between her thumb and forefinger. Yes, me. But the superior informed me of your plan to inspect the cell and asked if I would provide you with a notebook. By way of apology for how she had behaved earlier, she told me. When I arrived and could not find you, I thought I had perhaps gotten there before you, or that you were too afraid to come out at all. But why would you just leave the book there? Angela twitched her nose towards me, clearly tired of holding the key aloft in front of me. I obliged and took it from her. I was not lying when I advised against writing in a book. I think this is another one of our superior's ill-advised notions. I reasoned you would either find the book, and I would at least fulfill my role as messenger, or you would never find it, and therefore never use it. I could not resist the opportunity to teach you something. A lesson in either outcome. The corner of her mouth flickered upward. A cruel game! I was terrified I'd lost the key. You did lose the key, Hedwig. Thank God it was me who found it. It took everything in my power not to strike her as I had struck Eustace. My whole body tensed for a moment, but I resisted the urge. I found Angela truly, wholly despicable in this moment. A waste of my time! Was it? You did, in fact, lose this. You have learned to be more careful, I should hope. And perhaps you will think twice about further use of that book. Losing a key is one thing. Imagine what would happen if you wrote all of your secrets, all of your investigations into a little book that anyone could read. The superior thought she was being very kind, I'm sure, but her kindness clouds her judgment. We stood in silence for a moment, eyeing each other. In the distance, I could hear the sound of the rectory doors opening and cheerful voices spilling out into the night. What will you do tomorrow, Hedwig? Your holiday is almost over. I will endeavor to find Catherine's killer. And the day after that, I will continue to do the same. Say it. I will endeavor to find Catherine's killer. And the day after that, I will endeavor to find Catherine's killer. Once more, I will endeavor. My throat was dry and I had to swallow to get the rest out. To find Catherine's killer! Angela stood for a moment in contemplation, looking me up and down. Very good. I shall endeavor to do the same. Have a good night, Hedwig. She turned to stalk behind the rest of the sisters as they walked towards the dorms. I followed behind her, wishing for all the world that I had a spear I could hurl into the back of her head. God damn! Oh, Hedwig hates this bitch! I mean, to be fair, I feel like that was a lesson that Hedwig kind of needed. She's not really all up there in the whole deductive reasoning category. Like, I do think that was like a necessary lesson for Hedwig. The Angela Hedwig brainworms, I feel it. Now that's toxic Yuri, Claire. Angela eventually skulked away towards the superior's office. I went the other direction. I could hear voices up ahead. While I didn't feel particularly sociable, I welcomed the chance to speak to anyone who wasn't Angela. Oh, Moira, what are you doing? Moira and Eustace were chattering animatedly up ahead. Oh, there's Eustace. At first, I thought they might have been arguing. When they turned to me, however, they looked perfectly pleasant. Hi, Hedwig. I was just telling Moira about our little fish fry-up. Oh, I so wish I could join. Unfortunately, I have so much to do this evening. And wouldn't you know it, I'd already committed to spending the evening in the Misericorde. A shame to miss out on fresh fish, but I understand. Perhaps next time. Indeed. That's a good reminder. I should go and offer the chance to the others before everyone commits to the Misericorde. See you soon. Eustace left. Oh, by the way, Hedwig, could you remind me how one gets to your old cell? Of course, but why? Oh, the superior wanted me to double check that it's locked. I took the stairs across the cloister, but I couldn't find the hallway. It had not been long after I'd left my cell. I had been worried that a strange figure had been watching over me and launched myself up the stairs. I've never navigated to my cell from that direction. I always take the long way around, I suppose. Well, if that's easiest. This place isn't half a maze sometimes. Indeed. Sister Moira. Sister Hedwig. Angela was done chatting with the superior then. She marched past us. Our eyes met briefly. She had said nothing, but I felt judged all the same. Goodness, somebody's in a mood. We turned to follow her toward the stairs up towards the dorms. Voices echoed down the stairwell. The rest of the sisters were milling about at the top of the stairs between the Misericorde and library doors, talking animatedly. When I arrived, Catherine had just finished pulling Flora's wheelbarrow backward over the top step onto the landing. Evidently, getting the poor girl upstairs had proven to be a bit of a challenge. There's no disability accessibility. It's not wheelchair accessible. We gotta fix this fucking Abbey up. We gotta get a ramp in here. I'm drinking more coffee. Damn, that's good coffee. Took you long enough. You're welcome, Flora. Angela brushed past everyone and disappeared into the dormitories. Right then. Who are we having in the Misericorde tonight? Catherine practically jumped forward. Yes, please. I need it too. What a day. Me too. I don't think so, Flora. You need to rest. Flora made a sour face but said nothing. I'll join if you're going to be there, Charity. Of course. So that's me, Catherine, Margaret, Marta. Who else? Adela? I think not. Moira? Yes, please. I already said I would. I'll be there as soon as I can. Got lots to do. Room for one more. A night in the Misericorde might be restorative, provided Eustace wasn't planning to scare me again. Plus, I hadn't had much of a chance to speak to Charity lately. I felt somewhat guilty volunteering for potential bacchanalia just after I had affirmed my intent to find Catherine's killer. Plus, perhaps I was just making excuses for myself. I would like to think I was making the decision for the right reasons. At any rate, it did not matter. We have plans. I could hear snickering. Oh? Yes. We went fishing earlier, and we're going to have an outdoor fry-up. Crumbs, I'm a bit jealous. You just ate. We'll wait a bit. Obviously. Well, if everyone else is spoken for, I suppose Flora could join in. As long as she promises to behave. Really? I promise! The group split apart, the Misericorde goers huddling together outside the door, presumably to plan out whatever activities and treats they would indulge in. Or, I thought to myself as I wandered towards the dormitory, they could be discussing how relieved they were that I would not be attending. Oh, Hedwig! Come on, Hedwig! There would, after all, be no chance that I would attack any of them. I grimaced as I entered my room. I was feeling altogether exhausted. Fighting back tears of frustration, I set about hiding the dull knife I'd found in the walls in my pillowcase. It was joining the triangular strip of fabric I'd found snagged on a tree some time ago. Oh, I'd forgotten about that. And then there was the soiled copy of Matthew hiding under my bed. I sighed. I was gathering quite a collection of clues I was too stupid to make sense of. While I was at the very least relieved that I would not have to explain a missing key to the Superior, Angela had still run me ragged for the day over a little test. Angela and the Superior were demanding action from me, and Eustace was demanding stillness. I agreed with the ones who wanted me to press forward, truth be told. I had made up my mind to push onward, to find the guilty party, and clean up this whole mess and save this wicked place. But the ones who were supposedly my allies in this endeavor were strict, harsh, cruel, even. Meanwhile, Eustace, who was petitioning for me to let all of this go, was going to cook for me. She had corralled me into it, to be sure. Her invitation had really been more of a polite demand. She wanted to observe me. I was not stupid. At least not that stupid. What ate at me was how much I preferred her approach. As sure as I was that I would ultimately have to betray her wishes, I was still looking forward to her company far more than I was to report to the Superior or Angela about the investigation. It made me feel foolish. Worse, it made me feel craven. Was I really such a simple creature? I punched my pillow in frustration and broke down into the quietest sobs I could. This really is way too much just for one girl. I think I need to take a short rest. I apologize. I realize that I am lingering on details that might feel unimportant, meandering, adrift in the minutiae. This is rather difficult for me. I thought I was ready, but walking through all of this with you is making me feel ill at ease. I want to share my full story with you, I truly do, but some of it is too much to bear without assistance. You see, I am beginning to realize that I might have to share some rather strange, embarrassing, awful details with you soon. Perhaps I've been navigating in circles to avoid getting to them. Well, I've put the foundations down for you at the very least. But before I continue, would you fetch me some wine? That was a short chapter. Thank you. I appreciate this very much. I really am not one for excess drinking, as you will soon understand. But the manner of story I will be telling you will require a little extra courage. By the time I'm good and tipsy, I'm sure you will understand. What the fuck did you do, Hedwig? What's going on? I remember waking up to a knock at the door, although I do not remember falling asleep. I jerked up with a start, perhaps even a yelp, and nearly tripped as I stood out of bed. I'd contorted myself into an uncomfortable position whilst dreaming. My robe had been hiked up between my legs awkwardly during my brief nap, and my arm had gotten caught in the folds of fabric. Eustace slow jump scare. As I stumbled to my feet, I almost lifted my entire robe over my head. I was left awkwardly flattening my clothes when Eustace poked her head through my door. I didn't say you could come in! She spoke to me through the door, slightly muffled. Sorry. I was worried you'd fallen asleep. You guessed true, but still! Easy, easy. I'm just excited. Are you ready for a treat? Well, I did leave a little room for fish. Good. Come on, then. We can still catch the sunset if we leave now. I find Hedwig and Eustace's relationship very interesting. It goes, like, all over the place, up and down, you know? I find them very interesting. I opened the door and she gestured for me to follow her and then darted into her own doorway. She emerged a moment later carrying a traveler's bindle that looked rather heavy. Iron rods poked out of the fabric and I could faintly smell cold fish as she brushed past me. She led me down the stairs and around the cloister to the western side of the abbey. I realized that we weren't too far from the spot where Darcy had watched me fall while walking around the side of the abbey walls. Daylight was rapidly fading, and I hoped that I wasn't about to trip and make the same embarrassing mistake in front of Eustace. Luckily, we stuck to flatter ground. It was a very pleasant evening, if a touch chilly. Our robes were hardly thin, but I would be grateful for the warmth of a fire. Eustace stopped and began to brush aside tall grass at her feet. I realized that she had brought us to a circle of rocks and ash, somewhat obscured by overgrowth. Satisfied that she had cleared the campfire of grass, she set down her bindle and unraveled it. We laid out the fabric to use as a blanket, and Eustace set to work sticking the iron rods into the ground. What is that? A spit. That's how we'll cook the fish. But first, she produced another one of the tools she had brought, one that I recognized instantaneously. Do you know how to start a fire? Of course I do. I never would have survived winters in my cell without a hearth. She nodded and handed the flint and starter to me. Suddenly eager to impress, I struck the two together above the wood Eustace had been laying into the fire pit before her hands were even away. Careful! She yanked her fingers away as the spark lit the firewood. Sorry! She sucked on her fingers and wiggled her wet hand in the air, a bit with a slight grimace. Don't worry about it. I think you just got me with a spark. I like the subtle lighting, even though it's like black and white, you know? The fire crackled to life. I immediately felt a wash of comfort. Eustace set to much uglier work, putting one of the fish she had caught on the spit, which involved jamming one of the rods into its mouth and out the other end violently. I had Look at the fucking dead fish eye. I had secretly hoped that we would be cooking the kind of fish I was used to eating, a flat fillet free of skin, bone, and eyes. Well, the eyes had been removed, I think. The dead fish was far too expressive either way. It would take some bravery on my part to eat anything once it was cooked. I would have to set my face like the flint I held, as it were. Eustace finished the grisly work and set the fish atop the spit. There we are. I pinched a little salt from the pantry as well. This will be very tasty. So, what have you been up to today? She spoke with a shrill, insincere chirp. Oh, well, not much to tell you the truth. I've never really had a holiday. Not one where I had a choice of where to go and what to do at any rate. I mostly just flitted about. I see. I spent some time with Margaret and Catherine, did a little writing in my room, walked the abbey grounds a bit. Going fishing with you was the highlight, I think. Well, thank you. It's nice to know that I can be decent company. She turned the fish idly. Do you like it here? That's a difficult question to answer. True enough. You've experienced a full range now, really. There are days where we do a little work and then do as we please. And then there are days where we just do as we please. I realize your view of the whole thing might be a little marred by the unpleasantness, but I promise that is rare. Rarer than rare, in fact. The truth is that without Catherine around, each day here is exactly the same. That's a rather large thing to be without. It is. But it was true before she went mad, and it will be true when all of this dies down. You've never said it quite like that before. You told me that she could not leave well enough alone or some such. But mad? It's hard to describe it any other way. So, okay, hang on. This is new information. Catherine went crazy. I'm drinking coffee. It's hard to describe it any other way. Harsh, certainly, but it's perhaps the most succinct explanation. One day she was Catherine, and the next day might be somebody else obsessed with something dark and terrible. And then, eventually, the Catherine I knew, we all knew, was gone entirely. And now, here we are. But in the grand scheme of things, days like those, they are just one bump in a long road. That's difficult for you to imagine, having only been around for the bumps. But this is just a bump. Evenings like this, that's why this place is special. I know some of the others complain, but I wouldn't have it any other way. A quiet, pleasant life. A countryside holiday I could take until the world ended. But if all this evil remains, I feel like what you are saying is too easy for you. You haven't seen ghosts. You haven't been threatened. Well, I don't believe in ghosts. I am quite comfortable in that. As should you be, I might add. But if there is something going on, I have no part of it, and I refuse to give it air. Let any would-be schemer scheme. Well, she's really just sticking her head in the sand, huh? It doesn't involve me, and if I don't tend their fire, it'll die out. She stoked the real fire somewhat pointedly. And if it doesn't? She peered at me through her big spectacles. The flames reflected in the glass, and it was difficult to read her expression. Then I will have to leave. It won't come to that, I hope. Leave? Where would you go? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to leap into heavier conversation tonight. I think this one is almost done. She took the fish off of the spit and examined it. Ahoy! I whipped my head around in surprise. Adela was striding over to us with Darcy in tow. Eustace looked taken aback. I've come to deliver your girlfriend! We saw the fire and thought we would join you. Of course, feel free. There was that chirpy voice again. I was somewhat relieved to see that Adela and Darcy had brought extra provisions. Wine and salted meats and dried fruits and handfuls of nuts. Food without eyes. They sat down with us on the large blanket. Darcy perched next to Eustace with a warm expression on her face. Adela shot me a knowing smile, but I was not exactly sure why, because she delivered her girlfriend! Wine was poured and idle chatter was made. Eustace's polite inquisition was put to the side for more frivolous, less ulterior gossip. The sherry! I hope one day Marta has to drink her finished slop! Years of work wasted because she would not listen to my advice. It is what she deserves. Well, let's not let people who aren't here ruin our night. True. Oh, it does not ruin my night to complain. I love to complain. Hedwig, this is something you will learn about me. I suppose I just did. She took a big swig from her cup of wine and giggled, splashing some red juices onto her wimple. This is nice. Good time for it. Won't be long until the snow. Yes, that's what made me think about doing it. It'll be coming any day now. Adela groaned and flopped onto her back dramatically. Fucking snow! Fucking snow! Jon Snow. I miss Zahara. Don't we all? Where's Zahara? Iberia. I don't actually know where Iberia is. What is that? Iberian Peninsula is a peninsula in southwestern Europe. Mostly separated from the rest of the European landmass by the Pyrenees. Includes the territories of peninsular Spain and continental Portugal. Okay, so it's pretty much just the Spain place. Okay. Spain! Oh, well, you know what? I didn't have to Google it. I'm not trying to get political. Hedwig, Zahara is the most beautiful city in the world. The hills, they're so much prettier than our hills. The food is tastier than any food you could have here. And the weather! Zahara is so warm year-round, you could live comfortably without clothes for the rest of your days. The streets are clean, and the buildings are so bright you can see at night. I had no idea what to say. Adela feels very strongly about Castilla's claims in Andalusia. No, she is wrong, Hedwig. I only care about being able to live somewhere nice. We do live somewhere nice. It isn't so bad. The view is nice sometimes. Darcy said this, looking straight at Eustace, who cleared her throat with a sheepish smile. That is true. Adela said this, looking straight at me, and I cleared my throat with a sheepish smile. I tried to say thank you, but instead made a short of clucking sound on my dry throat. Wait, hang on. Whoa, okay, wait, hang on, this is gay! It just fucking clicked! Wait, hang on. Does Adela have a crush on Hedwig? I glanced over at Darcy and Eustace and was surprised but not shocked. No, not anymore. To see their mouths locked in a passionate kiss. Oh, okay. Whoa, whoa. We're just doing it. We're this is just out in the open now. Adela put her hand on my knee and smiled wryly. I smiled back, unsure of what to say. Oh, where is this going, chat room? Goodness, it's getting late, is it not? The others all looked at me in surprise. Adela looked wounded. Oh, you just rejected her! It is barely past sundown. Was it something I said, Sister Hedwig? I hope you all don't mind if I turn in early for the night. We all had a long and exciting holiday after all. With that, I stood up and toddled away. My body wouldn't walk straight forward. Hedwig! Sister Hedwig! I turned around to smile and wave. Truly, I did not feel angry with Adela. Aquinas had warned me about the homosexual male. But the female was a different beast altogether. We had no seed to spill. I crested the stairs in a mighty huff. Still, though, surely touching each other for pleasure was sinful nonetheless. Were the women in the Misericorde right now acting just as debauched? If I opened that door, would I see naked bodies entangled in shameful acts? You wish. No wonder this building was crumbling. No wonder devils and ghosts lurked in dark corners. No wonder the Superior had called these women sodomites. Oh, I guess she knows about it, huh? I felt dizzy and staggered to the stone railing to right myself for a moment. Had my naivety denied me heaven? Was half a second of a woman's hand brushing against my knee enough to send me to hell? No! No! You should have had more! I sobbed quietly for a while. This wine you brought me is serving me quite well. Goodness, I'm amazed I got through all of that without mispronouncing something. Mispronouncing. That's a funny word if you think about it, isn't it? No, I'm happy to keep talking about it. This is why I'm back in my cell after all. Well, mostly. I'll happily talk about it with the right amount of lubrication. I might need more to drink eventually, but no, I'm comfortable. I'm in my cell. This is where I belong, so I can't do any of all that anymore. Oh, she definitely fucked the girl. Oh, she definitely fucked the girl. Oh, that pretty much just confirmed it to me right there. You see, I'm just getting started. I mean, if you know me and you're someone I know, then I'm sure you knew about some of this, but I promise there's so much more that I did. Oh, she fucked the girl. Because you know why I'm here. You know that wasn't the end of any of that, and you know very well that I'm back in here for my own good. I really hope this all ends with Hedwig kind of like getting over her Catholic guilt a bit and leaving her cell for good. I really hope so, but you know, that might be too convenient an ending as well. Because the worst part of all of this is yet to come. And do you know how I know I'm where I belong? Because when I was crying then, I think I might have embellished in my written notes, because when I was crying then, I think between you and me, I was crying because I wanted more. Oh yeah. Oh, you bless your poor gay little heart, Hedwig. Oh my god. And from then on, my dark desires became incredibly distracting. Oh no, she got horny! Oh, what a useless sod I was. One small trick from the devil was all it took to send me spiraling. And at the time, I really did try. I was so convinced I was not tempted by avarice, but looking back, I was. As I wept on the landing, I told myself that I would get to work in earnest the next day, and indeed I did, as I'll detail for you. God, I'm feeling this so fucking hard right now. Not to get into too much details, but I used to be heavily involved in the church as well when I was younger, so... Oh yeah, I know these feelings. But it wasn't enough. I know what you are thinking. Where's this all going, Hedwig? Why are you dwelling on all this, Hedwig? Closing myself off in my cell isn't enough. I need to enumerate and account for all of my sins. Because sin I did over and over, unwillingly and willingly. I was being torn in half slowly by different people, different goals, different thoughts inside my own head. And it made me stupid. Far too stupid to solve any mystery. And now, here I am. People are dead because of me. Whoa! Spoilers, Hedwig! Jesus Christ! I think now might be a good place for us to rest. I ought to get some sleep. I am tired, and the worst is yet to come. If you would be so kind, would you bring me more wine tomorrow? There are more difficult subjects yet to come, and my throat is rather dry. Thank you. Tomorrow, then. I'll be here. I'll be here. What the fuck? Hey! Hey, you can't do this to me again! You can't fucking do this to me again! This was weird enough in the first game! Wait, this is a continuation of the secret scene from the first game! The flight was uneventful. Turbulence my butt. The only thing I know was how goddamn boring it was. I can't believe people do all that shit all the time. I'd kill myself. I tried falling asleep even, but it just wasn't happening. The engines were too loud and the recycled air gave me a headache. The rich lady who sat next to me got absorbed in a book as soon as we took off too, so I had nobody to talk to. Not that I wanted to spend much more time talking to her. I was getting a real strange feeling from her whole deal. When we landed, she thanked me again for finding her bag and reminded me not to spend all that cash she had given me in one place. Then she got up and left with the first-class passengers. Not sure why they let her. I guess she did have a first-class look. Anyway, I was running on fumes by the time I picked up my luggage and made my way to the outside of the terminal. I'd heard a lot of bad shit about Heathrow while planning my trip, but honestly, it didn't feel much different from JFK. Maybe I was too tired to notice, but it just looked like any other big airport. Gray, miserable, full of people ready to fall apart at any second. I stood on the sidewalk, pavement, and tried to hail a cab or bus or whatever I could find. Hey, hello. Hi, can you take me to Lynbarrow? Oh, this is interesting. Lynbarrow? Are you having a laugh? No. In the back of my head, I'd been worried about this. Lynbarrow Abbey, the whole mountain really, had a reputation for being haunted. What the fuck is this? I guess some superstitious folks wouldn't want to take me there. That's almost in bloody Scotland! Yeah. England's like small though, isn't it? Not that small, sweetheart. I have a wife and kids to go home to. Alright then, thanks. He tipped his hat to me and pulled ahead to the next customer. Need a ride? I jumped. This chick again. Oh, this is the fucking nun. Oh, this is the meta nun! This is the narrator nun, the meta nun, there she is! Where the fuck is this going, chat? I had last seen her at the fast food joint before my flight, and now she was bugging me on the sidewalk? Or pavement, whatever. Yeah, I do. Fuck, you scared the shit out of me. Saws. That's like a weird like Britishism for sorry, right? How, like, do you pronounce that as saws or something else? It always confused me. She put 2 fingers between her candy-colored lips and let out a whistle so piercing I had to cover my ears. A powder blue car emerged from around the corner. It looked a bit beaten up, and the diesel smell became overpowering as it approached the curb. An older guy in a tweed jacket was behind the wheel. Evening, ladies. My friend here needs a ride to Lynbarrow. Would you be so kind? Of course. How'd you know I was going to Lynbarrow? I heard you, silly. How'd you know I was going to Lynbarrow? You just have that look about you. The man chuckled and wagged his finger at my strange benefactor. Fair's fair. Look, I don't want to sound rude, but I don't want to get murdered. You can trust him. Isn't that right, Jim? That's right. I'm a happily married man, love. Wife would kill me if she caught me so much as a whiff of funny business. I mean, sure, okay. It was all a bit difficult to believe, but I looked between my mysterious friend and the man in the car and felt oddly calm. I had this weird feeling of, like, it all making sense, if that makes sense. Jim turned to the other woman. Do you need a ride as well? Oh, me? Oh, no, I have a meeting in London. All right, then. What's your name, miss? I waited for a second because I thought he was talking to her, but then I realized she had already slipped away. Alex. Just Alex? Yeah. Do you need help with your luggage? I noticed him glancing down on my leg as I walked toward the car. Nah, thanks. I fiddled with the trunk. Sorry, boot. And opened it wide. There's just enough room between some covered wooden boxes and dirty farming implements to slot my case. I slammed the boot shut and walked to the front seat. I hope you know it'll be a bit of a drive. That's okay. I closed the door inside, settling into the seat cushion. The leather seats were discolored and fraying. There was dirt tracked all through the car, but compared to the airline, it was practically a spa. The car began to shudder and we pulled away from the curb. I was so tired. I felt bad because this guy was being really nice driving me all the way to Lynbarrow, but he was so focused on getting out of Heathrow that I didn't see a good gap to say anything, and then... What the fuck is going on? I woke up slowly to the calming sounds of Rubber on Road. Oh god, how long was I asleep? 3 hours, and a couple more to go, I'm afraid. No problem. Thanks for doing this, by the way. How'd you know her? Oh, your friend? Don't know her at all. Wait, really? She flagged you down. Just luck, I suppose. I was driving to the airport for some reason or another and heard her whistle, and now here I am. Okay, this lady is like a fucking fae or something. What is her deal? Huh, well, thanks. Not at all. Where are you from? Ugh, the States. No offense, miss, but I figured that out. Whereabouts in the States? New York. City? Yeah, that's nice. Always wanted to visit the East Coast. Got a few friends there, a few in Boston. Not sure I'll ever get in a plane, though. New York's cool. I mean, it sucks, but it's cool. Oh, yeah? How's that? Oh, well, the city's mad dirty and the drivers are all assholes, but the people are cool. Except the drivers. Right, yeah. Sorry, I'm still a bit tired. No need to apologize, miss. You a punk? Here we go to, what's it? Heebie-jeebies? Heebie-jeebies? I'm starting to believe that she's Catherine. That is not a bad... Wow, yeah, actually, it totally makes sense, huh? The way she just flits about as she pleases. That's very Catherine, huh? What the hell was she doing? CBGB? That's the one. God, no, that place stopped being cool ages ago. Shows what I know. Nothing anywhere you might have heard of, I'd avoid. Not like because of you, just, you know, if it's a broken containment. He laughed and shook his head. Broken containment, blow me down. My son was a bit of a punk for a while. I picked a few things up. Yeah, that's cool. Apparently not. I felt bad, but he was still laughing. I guess he could take a joke. He reminded me of him a bit. My wife hated that stuff. I tried some of it out, you know. Wanted to connect with him. That's sweet. See, I thought so too. Took me a while to winnow down thought. Bought him a Sex Pistols record and he tossed it right in the bin. They kinda suck. Told you sounded like him. Took me a while to find something he liked. It's hard to find real punk. I'll be honest, it all sounded the same to me. But I'd know the difference if I was closer to it, I suppose. Yeah. Plus the English stuff is a bit different from the American punk, innit? Definitely. Hardcore is basically totally different from UK stuff. He chuckled to himself. Just like him. Blow me down, I say again. What brings you here then, if not our thriving punk rock community? I'll be honest, I still wasn't totally sure I could trust this guy. He was pretty charming and doing me a massive favor, but it was beginning to hit me just how weird the situation was. Then again, yeah, we had a long way to go, and I didn't really feel like making the rest of the ride awkward. I wanted to visit the Abbey. Lidbarrow? Yeah. You a history buff or one of them superstitious types? Dunno, both maybe? Plus, I'm kind of doing some family tree research type stuff. Going quite a way back then. You reckon you've got royalty in there or something? Maybe. Wouldn't really care if I did. Everyone does, more or less. Doesn't mean much. Doesn't mean anything. I'll drink to that. Doesn't matter much to me what the queer old dean does. Every time someone uses the word queer for its intended definition, it's just funny to me. I couldn't help but laugh. You know, like, dear old queen. I got it. Don't go telling anyone I said that, of course. If I visit London on the way back, I'll be sure not to tell any of the fuzzy hat guys. I take it you know all about the royal business at the Abbey, then. A bit. It's kind of why I wanted to come. Wait. Royalty at the Abbey? What is going on here? What happened? Ah, so you are one of those types. Superstitious. Conspiratorial. Maybe a little. It is an odd place, I'll give you that. Odd history. Yeah. You a historian at all? Not really. I'm curious, but not an expert. I really want to see it for myself, though. You staying in the village? I assume so, and thought that far ahead. There's a couple of pubs and inns. Of course, you could stay with me and the missus if you like. Save a few quid. Yeah, I'd appreciate that. I was used to couch surfing. Plus, even with the money that lady had given me for finding my bag, I wasn't exactly loaded. Your wife won't mind? Nah. She might give me some lip about it, but it'll be no trouble. She thinks I'm soft. Yeah? I guess you seem pretty nice. Well, thank you, young lady. Catch more flies of honey, that's always been my motto. You get a lot of visitors, then? I see enough. It's not a busy town, but it attracts a lot of travelers and tourists. Lots of people going to Edinburgh or Newcastle and so on. I think Claire's gonna murder me for how I pronounce that. I always forget, like, how it's supposed to be pronounced. Or the Isle of Man. Bit of a midpoint for a lot of things. All that plus the occasional curious type like yourself. The Abbey attracts some weird folk. Present company excluded, of course. I guess it is pretty weird to fly all the way to another country to see a haunted abbey. Haunted? Goodness me. Maybe. I don't know about haunted. But I shouldn't like to stay the night there, I'll say that much. Village is weirder than the Abbey, if you can believe it. Had one of them dancing diseases once upon a time. Dancing disease? Don't know what else you'd call it. I wanted to hear more about this, but it was starting to get dark. My eyes started to close, and then I drifted off again. You got it close enough? Okay, good. Okay, what the hell was that? What the hell does this continue to be? The sound of the car door slamming woke me up soon after. Here we are. Took me a second to fully wake up. I staggered out of the car to get to my suitcase before Jim could help. We were in an English village, all right. Small brick houses dotted the narrow road. I could see little farms in the distance. There were Tudor buildings and thatched roofs all around. Take that inside and I'll introduce you to the wife. I lugged my suitcase through the small front gate of the house and knocked on the door. I heard loud footsteps. After a moment, a woman answered the door. She was fat, middle-aged, and dressed in an old floral print frock. Oh, not again, James! All I could do was smile. I didn't know what to say. Found her at the airport. She's here to visit the Abbey. Offered her a ride and a place to stay. Save some cash, you know. Mary seemed to relax. Oh, well, that's all. I was worried you were another one of his collaborators. What do you mean, collaborators? Shush, woman! I was worried I was about to be stuck in the middle of a tense couple's argument, but Jim and his wife were both smiling broadly as they ushered me inside. Jim kissed her and shut the door behind us. What do you mean, collaborators? God, I love the chromatic aberration on these photos. I was just lending a hand. You know how it is. Your big heart is going to land us on the news one of these days. You'll have to go elsewhere for tea, I'm afraid. I ate with the seagulls earlier. No trouble. I'll fix myself something, and I imagine our friend here will probably want to head to the pub. Oh, yeah, sure. Just leave your things by the sofa there. You sound American. Long flight? Do you fancy a shower? Actually, yeah, if that's okay. Upstairs, into the hall. I opened my suitcase and retrieved a fresher t-shirt, then headed up the narrow stairs. It was crazy to me how much smaller English houses were. Jim and Mary seemed to have made the best of it, though. It was a fine place, just cramped. Cozy, I guess you'd call it. There were photos all along the hallway walls. A younger and thinner Mary. A few cute pictures of her and Jim as a couple in what looked like the 60s. A wedding photo. A photo of Mary holding a baby. There were a few gaps in between those and the more recent photos. And then, right by the bathroom... Fucking cool. Here were pictures of Jim in uniform. I kind of felt stupid. I should have immediately realized from his age that this guy would have fought in World War II. I had to admit, he looked pretty good in uniform back then. He was still stocky then, but his uniform couldn't hide the muscles he used to have. There was one picture in particular that stood out. Jim standing in front of a destroyed German car, grinning wide. The car was charred and smoking. Lucky grenade toss! Jesus! Sorry about that. Just wanted to give you a fresh towel before you got in the shower. He handed me the towel and pointed at the photograph. 4 officers in that car. We weren't even supposed to be there. I would have been in a heap of trouble if it hadn't been such a good throw. Did you kill a lot of people? Loads, probably. Nazis, of course. I was in explosives, artillery, and the like, so I couldn't give you an head count. Proudest of that lot, though. Got lost on patrol thanks to some spotty directions from HQ, saw a fancy car, flanked by a couple of trucks, and thought, well, if it's not the Fuhrer himself, it's probably someone important. Lobbed a grenade over the hill, and then he imitated the sound of an explosion. Never saw it coming. And by the time the blokes escorting them noticed, we were on them with the rifles. I wasn't much of a war nerd, but this story was cool. Yeah, that's fucking awesome, actually. Holy shit. God damn! That's awesome. And now half the cars in the village are German. Anyway, get clean and then head down to the pub if you like. Taking some local color. They'll get a kick out of you, I'm sure. He shuffled off, leaving me to wonder exactly what he meant by that. Their shower wasn't exactly accessible, but I made do. I had to lean my leg up against the toilet, loo, while I hopped into the small tub and leaned against the wall. Once I had freshened up a bit, I put my leg back on and headed downstairs. Oh, wait. Like a prosthetic? Is that something she mentioned in the last game? I forget. She mentioned it in the last game? Okay. Mary was sitting at the small kitchen table, drinking some tea. Jim was resting on the sofa, looking very relaxed and taking in the evening news. He glanced up as I came down the stairs. Freshened up? Yeah, thanks. No bra? Let her be, Mary. It's the punk look. I couldn't help but laugh. I pack light. Well, have fun then. Where's the pub? Pub sounds so strange in your accent. How many different ways are there of saying pub? Pub, 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 pub. Take a right out the door and walk down to the main street. It's called the Baron Arms. Can't miss it. Cool, thanks. I stepped out into the cool evening air and walked down the hill toward what looked like the main street. It felt weird walking on cobblestones. There are a few streets and alleys like that in New York, but I'd never seen this much. It was kind of hard not to feel like I was on a different planet or some kind of time traveler. Every now and then I'd catch the hook from a more recent pop song drifting out of a house, or a passing car's radio, but I swear otherwise I could have been convinced I'd stepped into 1950. I found the pub Jim had suggested and dipped inside. There were a few pubs on the street that had looked a bit livelier than this one. There was barely anyone in here. Well, maybe that's why he'd suggested it. I was still pretty wiped from travel. The lights were dim. The small television hanging from the corner of the bar was the brightest thing yet there. I was playing a show, program, starring some guy running around with a vegetable pinned to his suit. Very weird. The bartender nodded idly at me as I walked in. I chose a table in the dark in the corner, away from the handful of patrons seated at the bar, and sat down. I took a closer look at the folks sitting at the bar. An old guy who looked just like Jim, an older guy who looked like Jim in 10 or 20 years, and... Fancy seeing... Oh my god! This was starting to get freaky. Okay, yeah, okay, I'm calling her right now. Catherine, did some kind of, crazy-ass ritual or something and gave herself fucking, witch powers or something. Now she's just immortal and chilling. Before I could say anything, she stood up and walked over to join me. She had changed into new clothes, super out of place. She was wearing heels and this tight, high-waisted skirt and a billowy silk top. She looked like when bad guys in movies have evil secretaries. When she sat down, I noticed that she was wearing big square glasses underneath her bangs. No idea if those were new or if I just never noticed them. How did she see with her hair down like that all the time anyway? Fucking weird. She had been reading a novel before she had noticed me, but she sat down on the table with them. How was the journey? No traffic, I hope? It was fine. How did you get here? Same way you did, silly, the motorway. Yeah, but like, before me? I thought you had a meeting in London. I did? I don't know, I drive fast. Jim was nice? Behaved himself? Yeah. How do you know him again? Just a friend. He said he didn't know you at all. Maybe he forgot little old me. Or maybe he didn't recognize me. He's done a few favors for me. Sure, for work? That's right. It's interesting, isn't he? I guess so. I saw his World War II stuff. Kind of a character. Not half. Sorry, you said he's done favors for you? Like what? Helped me with research. Oh, for books and stuff. Mm-hmm. I can smell inaccuracies a mile away, but it's great knowing someone who was there to help sort through what matters and what doesn't. It's probably not going to ruin anything if a soldier says some slang from the 50s, but I wouldn't want to see a color TV in a World War II story. Feels a bit obvious. You'd be surprised. Did you know people only started saying hello in the 1800s? Huh. What did they say instead? Depends on where and when. Naturally. Anyway, things like this start getting quite granular, so part of my job involves doing research or finding people who can do the research. But the funny thing is, they'll often have conflicting ideas or opinions on which bits need to be accurate. You'd be surprised on how much can slide before the audience starts considering something purely fictional. Why do I feel like narrator Hedwig is dictating her story in the past to this woman? Because it's sounding like that's what she's talking about right now. So I make a lot of editing calls. Yes, you can have a teensy supernatural element here. No, you can't have that model of watch in 1968 and so on. What's funny is that everyone is constantly changing their minds too. It's all a bit like herding cats. Finally, a straightish answer. Jesus, that actually makes sense. You made it sound all mysterious for a while. I do my best. Anyway, are you staying with him and Mary? How do you know all this stuff? Just guessing. He's the generous type. It's easy to guess these things if you know enough about someone. His son was a bit like you. I figured he'd hit it off with you. Okay, maybe not so straight an answer. This was getting creepy. Did you meet his son? No. Interesting. She picked up her book and flicked through the pages. I realized that it had no cover. It was a plain, white, dog-eared paperback. After finding whatever she was looking for, she produced an expensive-looking pen and circled something. Sorry, am I boring you? Oh no, I apologize. I'm just checking something. I have to finish my notes on this by morning. What is it? A thriller. Bit of an airport paperback, really, but it's quite fun. What's it about? She put the novel down and folded her arms over it, then leaned forward with an excited grin. So it's this espionage story, yeah? Starts in the 70s, but covers a large span of time. Downing Street palace intrigue and so on. There's an attempt on the Prime Minister's life. And the spies and the detectives and stuff, they have no idea who it was. They profile the usual types, you know. Lefties, minorities, lefty minorities. Wow! And they get nowhere. Turns out, it was a bunch of retired farmers who were in cahoots with the IRA. Then what happens? That's it. That's the twist. Oh, that sounds fucking boring. Ah, right. You're not a big fan of fiction, I remember. I mean, sure, but I go to the movies and watch TV sometimes. I'm not a robot. That just barely sounds like a story. That's just a long article. Well, it hasn't happened. Sure, but it could, right? Like, I could imagine flipping on the news and hearing that basically word for word. Well, I think for some people, that's part of the fun. Not for me, I guess. Nothing wrong with that. She drummed her fingers on the table. Drinks! What would you like? A cider, I guess. She stood up and walked over to the bar. I swear she was exaggerating her hip swaying, if that's not too weird to say. I only bring it up because she also left the book on the table. I felt like I was being toyed with. or flirted with. I glanced between the book and the strange woman. I was thinking, how long will her order take? I wouldn't care about a boring spy novel normally, but I don't know, an advanced copy of a book? I'd be curious about an unpublished textbook if I'm being totally honest. You know, like if a button has a sign that says do not press, I'm pressing that button. Hell yeah, based! So I picked up the book and... It's not actually a thriller. The book is actually this. Chat room! The intrigue! Ah, you are back. Prompt. Perhaps a little too prompt. It is rather early. I am ready, I think, to continue. I slept well, thank you for asking. Did you bring me any wine? Good. Pass it through. Where did I leave off exactly? Ah, yes. I was leaning against the railing, contemplating my life after a dramatic exchange next to the bonfire. Sister Hedwig? I remember waiting on the landing for a while, sniffling like a foolish child. I am quite well, I assure you. No, you are not. I must apologize. I felt like we might have known enough about each other. She approached me with a look of grave concern. I scarcely know you. I'm not certain I'll ever know anyone enough for whatever that was. I can see that it was far too much for you. For me? For anyone, Adela. You have much to atone for if that sort of thing is a regular activity for you. Sister Hedwig. Is this common? Is this expected here? Expected is such an odd word to use. Nothing is expected of you, Hedwig. Well, I find you rather sweet. And wanted to express such. As flattered as I am to hear that, but perhaps words could suffice for now. I understand. I will never put you in that position again, Sister Hedwig. Or anyone! She cackled in a manner I'd never heard from her before. I respect you, Sister Hedwig, but you are not my mother. I was not prepared to argue with her. I knew, as I recently alluded to, that I could not quote specific scripture to make my argument, but by God, I could rebut any selfish, worldly, Gnostic, or otherwise hedonistic offense she could muster. I don't know. Should we be touching each other so affectionately? With such intent? Is it holy? I do not care. Any offense but that. What? I do not care, Sister Hedwig. Do you think I am worried about hell? Adela! I am mortified that I upset you, but that is where my shame ends. You are in the real world, Sister Hedwig, and people have wants and needs. Just because you want something, do you not think I am capable of managing my desires? I want so much more than to touch knees, Hedwig. I want a different life. I could walk right out of the Abbey tomorrow if I thought it was a good idea, but I do not. I am here, unfortunately, because unfortunately, it is the best place for me to be right now. I have important work to do. I have sherry to make. And I do believe in God strongly enough to have taken my vows willingly. But I do more work in God's name than most everyone on earth. Everyone here does, Sister Hedwig, and so does everyone in monastic service. When my time comes, I can only hope my devotion speaks for itself. If a few liaisons set me back, so be it. But I am not wanton. I have done the calculus, and I would expect you to know better than to judge me. You know who the only one who may judge us is. I felt thoroughly rinsed. Wow! She did get a little owned there, I have to say. Fucking hell, Hedwig. Perhaps I could have argued, but I had no energy to. And I had a humiliating desire deep within myself to agree. To let go of my pretensions. To lay on the floor and invite Sister Adela to get on with it. Whoa! That is a massive jump, Hedwig! I would have liked nothing more, truth told, and it made me feel ill. All I could do was maintain my shape. I had to be Sister Hedwig. I had to be pious, self-righteous, a little stupid. Black bile poured into a woman-shaped mold, in danger of melting in the daylight. If I gave in to my basest desires, as Adela had convinced herself was fair, I would cease to be anything at all. I felt so strongly that if I allowed to be touched in that manner, I would fall apart and the pieces would reform into something bestial. No longer the woman Hedwig, but a nameless animal who would eat anything put in front of it and bounce from desire to desire with no guilt or shame. No soul, just pleasure, just sin. Oh my god, this is fucking spicy. Holy shit. I am sorry, Sister Hedwig. I should not have been so rude. I know you did not mean any insult. I should be apologizing to you as I intended to in the first place. Don't mention it. We can put this behind us? Of course. I won't judge you for your proclivities. I must rest. I have had a long and strange day. I understand. I felt the need to soften the blow of our argument. It is embarrassing, truly, how readily I relaxed. You know, you weren't the first to touch me today. No. Someone else saw me disrobed as well. She raised an eyebrow, looking rather unsure of herself. I relished it. Oh? Then, wait, who bested me? Darcy. Though it really was an accident. Then Catherine caught me naked after that. Again, an accident. A long and strange day indeed. Well, if you do not mind my saying so, I suppose I must hope to one day stumble into such an accident myself. God damn! Holy shit, Adela! Go fucking get her! Get her! What? Oh. I am going to rejoin the others. See you tomorrow, Sister Hedwig. Goodbye, Sister Adela. I apologize. Discussing this is difficult for me. I suppose it isn't going to get any easier, is it? Excuse me, I must retrieve my cup. I dropped it. There we are. I suppose I have a small reprieve now. Because as I watched Adela disappear down the stairs, I resolved myself to get some real work done. I dashed to my dorm room to open my new workbook. I closed my door and hastily procured a quill and ink from the writing desk drawer. If I had disappointed God by letting my guard down around these women, I would please him by showing true commitment to my calling, here and now. I flipped to the first blank pages and spread the book flat on the desk and got to work. It was time to start committing things to ink so I could not forget them. I copied the same map that I'd drawn previously, but this time I began adding little figures around the abbey. It was time to work out exactly what happened the morning Catherine's murder was discovered. The body was in the middle of the cloister. Charity discovered her first. Angela and the Superior were having a meeting in the office. They would have all been alerted by Sister Charity. The Superior roused Moira and Eustace first, while Angela began searching for the culprit. And then Eustace and Moira carried the body into the chapel to be examined. James had arrived to make deliveries that morning and would have been in Sister Catherine's bedroom at the time. But then Angela did find him hiding later. So, Darcy saw a fire? Was attending to a fire? Or was that Eustace? I frowned. I was already beginning to forget critical details. Determined to make progress, I revisited the notes I'd just written. Charity discovered her first. Simple enough to confirm, I supposed. I made a note to ask Charity about it directly. Angela and the Superior were having a meeting in the office. What had they done when Charity alerted them? Then I realized, was it Charity who alerted them? If I could confirm that, it would confirm Charity's story. Simple connections I could build a bridge to the truth out of. The Superior roused Moira and Eustace first, while Angela began searching for the culprit. Is that what happened? I could ask Moira and Eustace how they heard the news. And then Eustace and Moira carried the body into the chapel to be examined. I could ask about that too, I suppose. I furrowed my brow. I'd have to ask Catherine about James as well. I was losing concentration quickly. And worse, I was beginning to develop a sinking feeling that I was walking in circles, right back to where I'd started the minute I'd left my cell. How could I ask any of these questions without tipping everyone off to exactly what I was doing? Who could I trust to answer these inquiries in good faith? I groaned aloud and slammed my quill onto the desk. This was my lot in life, to do a lot of work and achieve nothing at all. Was there really no foothold I could find? I considered my questions and notes once more. Eustace had already determined exactly what my goal was. It would put her guard up, and she would be upset that I had broken my promise to her. But I could at least ask her these questions without giving myself away. Or, perhaps, Perhaps I did not need to break any more promises. Eustace had asked for 1 week. I could at least appear to honor that for Eustace. And in the meantime, I could employ subterfuge to ask some of these other questions. Catherine meant so much to everyone here. Surely I could find a way to innocently get this information out of my peers without seeming nosy. I cared about Catherine just as much as they did. She had come to my hagioscope many times. Her loss moved me just as much as it moved them. 1 week. 1 more week of dishonesty, of white lies and prying questions. And then I could ask Eustace directly about whatever contradictions I discovered. Feeling somewhat satisfied, I sighed and closed the book. It had been a long day, and I was still reeling from Adela's touch. I stood up to strip for bed, and I fell onto my pillow. 1 week. 1 more week of calculated sin. She's doing the calculus. I could manage that. I'm drinking some water. Okay. Hedwig? Uh-huh. Did you have a fun night with Eustace? I wasn't sure how late you stayed up, so I just wanted to collect you for service. Thank you. I leapt out of bed and dressed quickly and then joined Moira in the dorm hall. We started walking down to the chapel. It was a bright, crisp morning. The others were slightly ahead of us. How was the Misericorde last night? Rather boring, to tell you the truth. Or, not boring, I suppose, but without Adela there to be competitive, the chess was a bit staid. Staid? That's not a word I've seen before. Sedate, respectable, and unadventurous. Stayed. Okay, it is stayed. Okay. Catherine got very drunk and started complaining about how good things used to be, and Charity and Marta kept to themselves in the corner the whole evening. What's that? Yeah, go ahead. I got stuck listening to Flora talk about Inferno again. How about you? I wish I could have had some fish, to be honest. I love a bit of fresh fatty bream. Oh, it was pleasant. Hedwig, you sound evasive. Do I? I'm just tired. Very well. We arrived at the chapel. It was actually something of a relief to see the superior back up at the pulpit after the tumult of the last few days. I could not be too relaxed, however. Adela shot me a knowing smile when our gazes met across the aisle, and the glint of Flora's metal boot kept getting in my eyes as the sun moved across the windows. The bishop, too, was seated for service. He looked rather bored, but perked up when things concluded. Now then. These have been a stressful handful of days, but I believe in second chances and moving forward as a family. And what better way for a family to bond than to welcome new members? Oh, new people! New people! Sometime today, should the last letter I received be marking time accurately, 2 new oblates will be arriving. I expect you all to make them feel welcomed and help them integrate into our little abbey. While I would normally say, show them how we do things here, I think you all know that the way things are done here could be vastly improved. So I will ask you all humbly, do not settle for your worst. Let us consider this an opportunity to set an example, not just for our new sisters, but for ourselves. We can show them how things should be done here, and how they will be done here. Do you all understand? As per usual, a mildly agreeable murmur went around the room. Very good. She gestured to the bishop, who stood up to take the pulpit. I would like to thank you all for welcoming me into your home as always. Visiting Linbarrow is a unique pleasure that cannot be overstated. I heard a stifled chortle. Catherine and Margaret were elbowing each other. There is, of course, a sense of tragedy hanging over this visit. The loss of one's sister Catherine, who is, of course, an indispensable and cherished member of this congregation. I have been in talks with your superior, the diocese, and some anonymous benefactors. And I am delighted to announce that we will finally be able to perform some renovations to the Abbey grounds. Another murmur. This is a lovely place, but it is a touch drafty. Is it not? Crumbling walls, aged paths, unfinished additions to the campus. But most of all, I am thrilled to share that I've secured the funds to not only finish and repair this place. The diocese has agreed to fund the repair and completion of the ill-fated clock tower that currently lies in ruins next to this chapel. There was a horrible sound of wood scraping on stone as Eustace shot upward onto her feet so violently it moved the whole pew. Sister, Eustace? Nothing. That is just excellent news. Yes. I explained to the diocese and our financier? That's a weird word. That the clock tower would be a wonderful way to honor your departed sister Catherine. I hear she was quite passionate about the first project. Perhaps we can name the new one for her in order to preserve her memory. As for her killer, he will be returning with me to the diocese to await his punishment. As the superior told you, I think this is a wonderful opportunity for a new beginning. New oblates, a round of repairs on the abbey. Truly, this place can shine as a beacon on the mountain for all travelers who pass through the cold north. Eustace's hand shot up. Sister Eustace? That's a good point. It's rather late in the year to be starting construction work, is it not? It is indeed. Luckily, our benefactors have graciously paid for new stone to be cut and transported here and for labor costs. With any luck, the tower will be completed before any snow begins. That's absurd. It is extremely generous, yes. They are prepared to work through inclement weather as well. Surely it is already too cold for limestone. I have been assured the workers will know what to do to get the tower erected quickly. Workers? Well, of course. Where are they going to stay? They will be making camp outside of the abbey. I vehemently disagreed with this decision. The bishop looked towards the superior, confused. I am well aware that nobody enjoyed having workers interrupting our daily lives. Catherine did, if I recall. Why is it that you disagree with this decision so vehemently, huh? Upset that Catherine II gets a building named after her before you? How many laborers are you hoping to host in your bedroom? Oh my god! You can't say that in front of the bishop! Will you run through them one at a time or pick just one to keep as a pet? Catherine stood up, the superior and the bishop shouted in unison. Enough! I must admit, I am surprised by this reaction. I really think this is a bad idea. It's too cold to build anything right now. They should at least wait until after the snow melts. Making them work through the worst of winter would be inhumane. I raised my own hand. Sister Hedwig? When will you be leaving with James? Well, I will be sticking around to administer communion to the new oblates and see that they settle in. A week at hazard. Why do you ask? No reason. I can feel eyes burning the back of my neck. I just want to pray for him. That is all. The bishop nodded sagely, as should we all. That was that then. God was determined to make sure I held to my promise. A week of subterfuge. I squirmed in my seat, pretending to stretch so as not to look too obvious. Eustace was still looking at me from across the chapel. Her expression was as blank as ever. I could only hope that my explanation had satisfied her. She knew what I was really up to, but she also knew that I was devout. She found me pious to a fault, in fact. I felt a little faint, realizing that I now had an even harder deadline. As I turned to face the front again, I caught Angela's eye. I nodded as gently as I could. Loath as I was to associate with her, Angela was the only ally I had. Turning away, I couldn't help but lament how much both women's gazes bothered me. Why did people only ever look at me when something was wrong? Service ended, and we all filed out of the chapel. The wind was picking up, and it was beginning to rain. I had work to do in the library, of course, but I could think in there. Of course, I would need to be wary of Eustace sitting directly across from me. I fretted silently as I walked through the cloister with the others. One by one and two by two, individuals and pairs broke off from the gaggle and left to complete their meager tasks for the day. I tried to keep track of where everyone was going, even though I would have no way to know where they would end up when they left my sight. Charity and Marta took their chairs in the cloister. Adela headed to the cellars. Darcy toward the kitchens. Catherine and Margaret to the garden. Moira skipped ahead of us up the stairs. The bishop and the superior to her office. Eustace, meanwhile, was busy wheeling Flora backward up the stairs as I passed her. I saw Moira disappear into the dorms, then realized... I warn you, Flora, this will be a bit boring. What isn't around here? Fair enough. Flora's joining us in the library? Yes, it's our turn. Don't sound too excited. It's no problem. She opened the door and awkwardly dragged Flora's wheelbarrow inside. Just know, we are going to be working. Quietly. Yeah. I'll keep to myself. I'll just read some. Oh, shit. I keep accidentally right-clicking. I don't know what's wrong with me. I took my seat. Eustace maneuvered Flora between our two desks. Can't you put me a bit further in? What am I supposed to do sitting here? Tell you what you want to read and I'll go find it. I was already having trouble focusing on anything. I don't know that kind of thing off the top of my head. Well, think of something. Just put me a bit further in. No, we'll knock something over. I'll be a real pest if I don't find something to read. Eustace rolled her eyes and jerked the handles of the barrow back up. She pushed Flora closer to the specialty shelf I remember being shown on my first tour of the library. Surely there's enough in there to keep you occupied. Better than nothing, I suppose. Thank goodness for that. She plopped the barrow back down and slumped into her chair. I could sense that she was unhappy of how close Flora was to her work. That made two of us, I suppose. I bristled, thinking back to the one mystery I had managed to solve around here. Ah! Satan jump scare! I opened my chronicles and tried to set to work. I realized that given we had taken a holiday in between, I had a tall order to fill. Recounting the day that put Flora in that wheelbarrow, was it proper to out Flora as the one who summoned the devil? Should the details be mentioned at all? I struggled with these questions for a while, idly twirling my quill in my hand. Flora was still bothering Eustace on the other side of the room. Yours all look boring. Well, that's a problem with your taste, isn't it? Pick something. Explore something new. All the good stuff is further in the back, I reckon. You saw the book Scapulomancy? No. Curiosity got the best of me. I could not help myself. Anything with Mancy appended to it got me rather worried. What is that? Magic you can do with a scapula. Like the bone? Which bone is your scapula again? Scapula. A flat triangular bone in the upper back that connects the collarbone to the upper arm bone. So, it's one of the shoulder joint buttons. Bones. Huh. And what is that? It's a bone. Sort of a big triangle in your back. The Greeks used to tell the future with them or something. I never got to read much about it. Thank goodness for that. I don't believe we should have any books on such a subject. You're in luck then. We do not. We used to. We shouldn't have. I quite agreed. Not sure what you're fussing about. It's just interesting, that's all. Adela has her tarot cards. As much as I disapprove of those, they are at least not made of bone. Quiet, please. I am rather busy. What are you working on? I could help. I don't need any help. What about you, Hedwig? Huh? Lyra was shouting at me from the spot Eustace had parked her wheelbarrow. What are you working on? You're the chronicler now, right? Yes. What are you writing about today? I haven't decided yet. Fortunately, you shouldn't have to decide anything. Just describe what happened. That's your job. So it is. Are you going to write about, you know, my leg? Well, she should, because it happened. I'll certainly be covering your leg injury, yes. What are you going to write about it? That your leg got caught in the door due to the harsh winds. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that about sums it up. Indeed. Yes. Any other details? What other details could there possibly be? Well, I will be sure to include our ingenious workshop camaraderie. Wonderful. Well, what about yesterday then? Bit of a blank, that one, innit? We had a holiday. No, wrong voice. We had a holiday. I imagine she'll just write that we had a holiday then. Correct, Hedwig? Yes. There was so much I could have written about, but it would likely have drained my life's essence to put it to paper. I almost kissed a girl. I was grateful for Eustace's terseness for one. Sounds like an easy job, to be honest. What do you do all day when you're not chronicling? Don't be nosy. I suppose I just flit about and see if anybody needs any help? Uh-huh. Potential devil worship aside, I was beginning to become rather irritated with Flora's petty behavior. Hadn't I saved her life not 2 days ago? Forgive me my pride, but I'd rather think I would have been justified in expecting a little bit of contrition. I have a lot to learn. It's good for me to touch a lot of things, get a feel for how everything works outside of my cell. Right. I would appreciate some silence. I have a lot of papers to sort through. What is it you do again, Eustace? Shush! Flora fell silent, but I could see her sulking. Occasionally, she would sigh loudly in a plea for attention. I tried to focus on my tasks. I described the night of Flora's injury as best I could. I omitted the supernatural truth in favor of the tangible details. We all searched for Sister Flora. At night, I heard a terrible sound. I followed the noise and discovered Sister Flora running through the hall. Her leg got caught in the upstairs door and was broken. It wasn't the entire truth, but it was at the very least not a lie. I could rest somewhat easy with that. I glanced over my desk at Flora. She was still looking huffy, arms folded across her chest. I marveled at her for a moment. Huh? What is that? What is that smile? Her, I thought to myself. She could bring about something as terrible as that beast in the hallway? You need something? Oh, no. Oh. Just, you were gawking at me all weird like. Just happy you're safe. Yeah? Yes, of course I am. So am I. We all are. Funny. Doesn't feel like it. Oh, that's the fridge. Oh, okay, never mind. I'm gonna finish off this coffee. It's probably cold by now. Okay. What do you mean? Seems like everyone's sick of looking after me already. It's not like I asked for it. You still got a leg because of me. Did you know that? I could hear Eustace tapping Flora's metal boot with her quill. Sure. Just, you know. You lot have to push me all about now. I can hear people whispering. I'm not stupid. I doubt it's about you. It was hard trying to talk someone out of the same thoughts I had every day. Especially when I knew for a fact that Flora was correct. I remembered the looks Margaret had shot me and how exasperated Moira had seemed after trolleying Flora around for a spell. And I had my own dark suspicions, of course. Like I said, I'm not stupid. You'll be fine. Maybe it's time to take up a hobby. Well, I've been enjoying reading, but apparently that's annoying to some people around here. Honestly, you'll learn to read, my uncle said. A monastery will make you clever. Never mentioned that the other sisters might not want you to read their precious books. Catherine II used to let me read loads of cool stuff. Oh, get down from the cross, Flora. Eustace! Don't you start. I'll get off the cross if you let me choose a bloody book. I said you could pick anything you like from that shelf. What about the other shelves? There's more books on that shelf than most people in this country see in their whole bloody lives. Surely you're not too good for... She paused. Liber Urbani? What is that? A poem about proper manners for gentlemen. That sounds fucking boring! It's 200 years old! That sounds even more boring! It's history! You'll be history when I get out of this chair! Hedwig! Are you finished with your work for the day? Yes, as a matter of fact. Good. Would you mind taking Flora for a lap around the cloister? Anything's better than this. Very well. That was an exchange right there. I closed my book and put away my quill and ink, then hastily made my way over to Flora's wheelbarrow. Thank you. Yeah, thanks. And thanks for nothing, Eustace. I tried to cart Flora out of the library as fast as I could, but I wasn't quick enough to avoid one more spiteful exchange. Eustace shot Flora a nasty glance behind the piles of papers on her desk as I repositioned the barrow. Flora returned fire by sticking out her tongue quite rudely. Getting Flora through the doors was rather unwieldy, and the barrow itself was heavier than I had expected. Honestly, what's her problem? I think she's just very busy. That's what I don't get. If she hates me so much, just let me muck around out of sight. There's loads of books in there. Those shelves go on for ages. I think she's just very particular. Don't I know it? I wheeled her towards the stairs to the cloister. Careful going down these. Margaret goes much too fast and it's hell on my bum. Of course. So, how is the wheelbarrow? How is the wheelbarrow? Do I like being in a wheelbarrow? What the fuck do you want me to say? Forget I asked. That was a silly question. Too right. It's better than the alternative, I suppose. Better than being dead? Yeah. You think that thing would have killed me? If you'd made it downstairs. Luckily, there was nobody around to hear our conversation. I think it might have killed us both. Yeah. We trundled along in silence. She's acknowledging it! She's acknowledging it! I had no real idea what to say. I was shaking. I felt tired. I felt exposed to the elements and weathered. There was simply too much going on, and I was pushing a potential devil worshiper around. I wanted to ask the Lord for strength, but that felt like pushing my luck. After yesterday's antics, I was lucky I wasn't being smited where I stood. Instead, I tested the waters of Lyra. Perhaps I could solve at least one riddle while I had her alone. Do you know what that thing was? I have a guess. What's your guess? I think it's Catherine. My blood ran cold. She's not the first one to say that. She's not the first one to say that! As in, dead Catherine, yeah. What makes you think that? Makes sense, I suppose. I heard the other sisters talking about your prank. Only it wasn't a prank, was it? You saw it too. She would have been upset with you, I think, for taking over her work. I meant no disrespect. Sure, but ghosts don't know that, do they? Anyway, weird stuff has happened here before, but you and me seeing the same thing just makes sense to me. So, let's say she was upset with me and wanted to, I don't know, punish me. Why would she show herself to you as well? Dunno. She was tensing up. You can't think of anything? Nah. When you were missing, what happened when you saw the ghost? I never got a chance to ask you exactly how everything, you know, happened. Well, I had a secret project going on back there. In the walls, you know. Margaret used to show me secret passages she knew about, and I explored those when I wanted to be alone. And I was doing something in that passage near your old haunt. What was it? Nothing important. It was silly. Just an art project. Lyra, all my hairs were standing on end, but I reasoned, rather cruelly, that I was in no physical danger from this teenage cripple. I've seen your little project. I think I know what it was. Lyra was quiet for a moment. Margaret showed me those passages too, and, well, showed me the carving. Yeah? Yes. Huh. Did the ghost come out of it? No. We kept rolling along the path around the cloister. I could see Flora shaking. I don't think it could have. I know this seems bad, but I don't think they're related. What was the spell? Whatever it was. What was it meant to do? Not that. Nothing like that at all. She had sunk low into her pillow. Okay. The Hedwig was actually fucking right. Lyra was actually trying to do some magic shit. Okay. I wasn't expecting this. We did some more laps. I don't remember how many it took until she spoke once more. Not that I think they are related, but maybe I could fix it. I must have just gotten a detail wrong. You know, just in case it is my fault. It might, I don't know, send it back. I did not follow her logic. Perhaps this was thinking that made sense to people who read Inferno or other bits of frivolous entertainment. To me, it was nonsense. And so when I informed her of the reality of the situation, her reaction baffled me. It's gone, I'm afraid. That wall collapsed overnight. You're joking. I am not. You're joking, and it is not very fucking funny. I really am not. Lyra tilted her head back and let out a horrible wail. I shrunk. Surely the whole abbey had heard her, and we would be inundated with attention soon. It's just gone? Yes, perhaps we should talk about something else. It's gone! Sure enough, other sisters began to appear. To my chagrin, Adela emerged from the stairs to the cellar. Sister Flora, are you well? Lyra was sobbing quietly to herself, but nodded. Just sick of this bloody wheelbarrow. Oh dear. Is Marta down there today? Not at the moment. Can I come sit in the cellars with you for a bit? Adela glanced at me quickly. Of course. Would you like me to take it from here, Sister Hedwig? I had no intention of abandoning you. You wouldn't be. I just want a change of scenery. I gripped the handles of the wheelbarrow tightly. All will be well, Sister Hedwig. Truly. I don't doubt that, only... I was not sure what I was feeling. I relinquished my grip on the barrow. Adela took the handles from me and began making idle conversation with Flora as they departed somewhat awkwardly down the stairs. I was left alone in the cloister, although it was not for long. The fear and revulsion I'd been feeling in Flora's presence was slowly fading and being replaced with pity. As nonsensical as it seems, her reaction had me somewhat convinced that she had not intentionally unleashed a beast upon the Abbey. Whether she had unintentionally done so remained to be seen. Given the state she was in, however, that was a conversation that would have to wait. Footsteps echoed throughout the passage, and I turned to see who else had heard Flora's cry. Hedwig! Did I hear Flora a moment ago? Yes, but not to worry. I think she was just upset about her situation. She's going to accompany Adela in the cellar for a little while. Hope of the sherry, I think. Oh, that's good. I heard her screaming and was worried something had happened to her leg. Oh, no. She's just sad, I think. Good, good. I mean, I don't think it's good that she's sad. Just that it's not in my purview. I can heal bodies, but not hearts. I was terrified it could have set the bone wrong or that an infection was starting to hurt. It's nothing like that as far as I know. Well then, how are you, Hedwig? Finished with work for the day? I am, as a matter of fact. When I wrapped up, Eustace wanted me to take Flora out of the library to get some fresh air. And then she just became overwhelmed. Who could blame her? No, indeed. What about you, Moira? Done for the day? Oh, goodness, no. I'm all over the place today. Darcy needed some help with her plants, and I was actually just on my way to inspect some of the food stocks. Inspect? Just to see if it's all still edible. Catherine used to be a bit paranoid about food, and I guess it stuck. Oh, goodness. And then I've got letters to write. Oh, so much going on. Letters? Oh, the Superior has me handling some official correspondence. She's got her hands full of the bishop here, so I've got to reach out to the diocese and various benefactors. Budget things, quite boring. That sounds stressful. Too true. I have a minute, though, if you'd like to chat. I considered for a moment. It was beginning to get difficult keeping track of who I needed to ask what and what suspicions I needed to be careful of. Yes, I would like that. Moira beamed, then gestured towards the chairs that Marta and Charity often sat in, just across the cloister. Over there? Lovely. Drinking some water, hang on. We made our way to the seats and made ourselves comfortable. The air was cool and pleasant. The rain was letting up. Moira let out a heavy sigh as she lowered herself onto the chair. For a moment, I'd sensed the true weight of the work she took on. Oh, look at her. She's so fucking cute. Her chipper self returned in an instant, however. So, how was your little fish fry-up last night? Eventful? Oh, that doesn't sound like Eustace. I would have expected it to be rather quiet. It was at first, I suppose. Darcy and Adela showed up eventually, though. Oh, how fun! Moira is, like, a little too perfect, you know? I kind of see what you mean. I do kind of see what you mean. She does get along with everyone. What did you all get up to? I met Moira's innocent gaze. There wasn't a hint of sarcasm or euphemism in her tone. She was as bright-eyed and friendly as always. I hadn't entered this conversation with any intent of telling her the truth, but I broke down into tears almost instantly upon looking at her face. It felt like I had looked straight into the sun. I couldn't possibly lie, and I'd sins to confess. She looked taken aback. Hedwig? Did I say something? No, I just... Yesterday, Darcy kissed me. She said it was an accident, but I was still so confused. Then at the bonfire, Adela put her hand on my leg. Oh, that's rather normal. I do realize that must have been quite a shock, though. I'm rather surprised, to tell you the truth. I was under the impression everyone was going to try and, fuck you. She is kind of fresh meat, huh? Everyone wants the innocent fresh meat, huh? Ease you into that knowledge. Ease? That was certainly not ease. That sort of behavior, the touching and so on, is rather common here. Common? Ah, yes. I don't know what to think about it, really. I've been running through scripture in my head, and I cannot find anything to hold on to that says, no, that is wrong. This certainly doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like it's in the spirit of the scripture. I know that Aquila certainly wouldn't approve. He's far cleverer than I could hope to be. It felt wrong to you? I wouldn't let a man touch me in that manner. And if it would be wrong with a man, that would be wrong with a woman. Perhaps more so, I'm not sure. A new sin. One not recorded yet, but it feels self-evident. I saw Moira nod slowly, deep in thought. You would make a very interesting theosopher. I certainly understand what you mean. I must admit, it took me a long time to come around to the idea. Do you partake? That's a very private question, Hedwig. But I would wager everyone here does. Well, not Flora. That was an interesting time. When we took on such a young oblate, everybody vowed to keep it all a bit more quiet, so to speak. For a while, it was rather out in the open. We kept the superior in the dark, of course, but you know how hands-off she can be. Laura's arrival prompted a bit of a re-evaluation. Because she was so young? Yes, that and... Honestly, you're not the only one who felt conflicted. You heard the superior speak of fresh starts in the chapel, a conversation that was not too dissimilar. But everyone still, eventually... Of course they did. It's never reached the real bacchanalia that it did before Flora arrived, but... I don't know, to tell you the truth. It's not like there's much else to do around here but each other! What a strange way to see things. It felt quite natural to us. Being affectionate with the people around you comes naturally after a while. I don't know. If you leave a bunch of sweets in the same box, they'll eventually melt together. That is the cutest fucking thing I've ever heard. That's that's the cutest way I've ever heard a nun polycule described. I wouldn't know. I don't think I've ever had a box of sweets. I fed you one of those candied fruits when you fainted. Was that your first? I shook my head. If you're asking if I have a full inventory of everything I've ever eaten, I'm afraid I'm lacking. We must treat you to some of the sweeter things in life. You've spent so long deprived. I'd rather be deprived than depraved. Moira chuckled ruefully. Hedwig. Save that one for your book. Listen, if you don't mind my asking, could you see yourself ever opening up to any kind of tenderness? I inhaled, preparing to answer in the negative. But Moira's expression changed suddenly, and I realized somebody must be behind me. I stopped just in time. Sister Margaret, what can we do for you? Do? Nothing. I just wondered if I could have a chat as well. Certainly. She gestured to the third chair, still empty. I really like this point of view here. Margaret sat down and patted her knees. This is like seeing them just at this different angle opens up like so many new expressions from them, and I really like it. So, I'm assuming we're talking about the clock tower. Moira shot me a glance. No, actually. Oh, well, that's what I came to talk about. Of course. How do we feel about it? No opinion, really. Hedwig? I'm afraid it's been the least of my concerns. Am I meant to have an opinion on it? Not if you don't want to. Everyone else is going to have one, though. Why? Well, I'm sure you know this isn't the first time Soup's trying to get one built. Last time it went rather poorly. Me and Catherine, rest in peace, tried to warn her. By the time we convinced her, it was too late. Yes. Now she's doing it again, and I don't know. It certainly sounds like she's trying for another rush job. It's honestly ridiculous. I think that's why I haven't really put much stock in worrying about it. Unless she enlists an army, there's no chance it gets finished before Christmas. Indeed. Margaret looked oddly grim. Moira reached out to squeeze Margaret's shoulder reassuringly, and I felt a strange spike of jealousy. She clearly knew something I didn't. For a moment, I felt as if my chair was being dragged away from the two of them, that I had no closeness to Moira or Margaret, that I was an outsider after all. I do hope the build goes smoothly and that nobody gets too worked up about it. At the end of the day, the tower sounds like it's getting built. Hopefully Eustace can accept that. Why doesn't Eustace want a clock tower? I think it's less about the clock tower and more about preferring peace and quiet. Just another one of Eustace's weird insistences. I enjoy her company, but she can be a real ass. Moira chuckled, patted Margaret's shoulder one more time, and then stood up. I'm afraid I really must be getting back to work. I have letters to write. Gotcha. Have a good one. Bye. She drifted away. So yeah, all of these nuns are fucking each other is what Moira just told us. Well, maybe not all of each other, but at least someone. Margaret sat back in her chair and exhaled deeply. Hey, Hedwig. Yes? Wanna go smash something? Wow! Smash something! God damn! What a fucking transition! Holy shit! Smash something? Yes. You know, break something for fun. Is that fun? Of course it is. Don't be bashful. I saw you walloping that keg the other night. Oh. I suddenly remembered Margaret's inexplicable tears during that event. I feel like I must apologize for that. Why? Because well, it certainly seemed like you didn't appreciate it at all. Margaret made an inscrutable expression, her mouth somewhere between a grin and a grimace, and her eyes darted to the left. That wasn't your fault. Oh, follow me. Margaret moved away, and I had to jog to keep up. She was taking me back towards the chapel. We eventually arrived at the pile of stone rubble, the previous clock tower. I'm round the back for a minute. I think there's still some old furniture in the back of the chapel no one's using. I followed her to the rear door of the chapel. She cracked open a small door which led to a small anteroom. It was dusty and dry in here. It smelled of old wood and dirt. It looked like the room had been repurposed into a sort of shed. A few old chairs, desks, and tools, all in various states of disrepair, were heaped into the corner. I looked down at the wooden floor and dragged one foot over it. It was rather rough. The sole of my shoe kept catching. Let's take a few of those chairs. We awkwardly untangled some bits and pieces from the pile of furniture. I still had no idea what Margaret saw in this enterprise, but I followed along dutifully. We took the chairs outside. Margaret placed hers a few meters from the pile of stones. I mimicked her and then followed her to the rubble. She began to climb it. Get on up. It's not difficult. I tried my best to find a foothold on the rubble. Here. She reached her hand out to me, which I took gratefully. With her help, I managed to scramble atop the pile of stones. I nearly lost my balance at the top, however. Careful. You don't need two sisters in wheelbarrows. Indeed. Anyway. Whoa, music! Hello! She reached down to pick up one of the smaller bits of stone under her feet, still big enough to require two hands, and held it between her legs. Watch this. She swung her arms up and released the rock. It sailed through the air and then... Damn, missed. This looks very dangerous. Look for the chairs. Give it a go. Gingerly, I bent down to select a rock to throw. Far too small. Just for practice. Go on then. I chucked the smaller stone into the air. Not bad for your first time. She bent down and picked up another big rock and tossed it into the air with a grunt. Her aim was true, although the rock landed squarely on a table without breaking it. Damn, tougher than it looks. Here we go. I picked up a larger stone with two hands. It felt so rough and strange in my fingers, it gave me the shivers. With some trepidation, I lowered the rock between my legs and then swung my arms up. My missile struck a chair. Bits of wood and splinters flew everywhere. I must admit, it was rather enjoyable. There you go. We began to launch rocks in tandem. Our rhythm built up to the point that I don't believe either of us were really thinking too hard about what we were doing. I assume this is why Margaret has suggested the activity in the first place. The throws became second nature, and the dull thuds of missed shots and the crunching of successful ones eventually became nothing but pleasant background noise. We moved effortlessly enough to be able to converse mid-throw. Whose fault was it? Whose fault was what? Oh, the other night. You said whatever was bothering you in the cellar wasn't my fault. I was just curious. Bit nosy. I'm just concerned for your sake. It was nobody's fault, really. I just didn't like any of it very much. Because it was Catherine Sherry? You bought Eustace's reasoning? I think it was rather nice. So did everyone else, I think. Which means that I'm just being unreasonable. I wouldn't say that. You were the one that told me that I shouldn't have to change my behavior just to match everyone else. I did say that to you, didn't I? Oh, I don't know. I think there's an element of it that you wouldn't understand. So it is unreasonable of me to be upset with anyone, mostly. Mostly? Anyone. I see. Are you sure I wouldn't understand? Yes. Very well. You can ask if you'd like. Well, tell me, and then I can either understand or not. Nice try. I'm being honest. So am I. She grunted again as she hurled a particularly large stone into the air. It collided with a chair and left a gaping hole in the middle. I like Margaret. She's... God, I love every character. Unfortunately, I just love every character. I don't want to burden you with old things. You have plenty of new things to worry about, eh? Like Flora. Yes. Did you know that carving I showed you disappeared? Yes. The wall fell away. It's odd, isn't it? It is. Do you know why I showed you that? I assumed it was to show me what a strange abbey this is. Indeed. Chat, is the music too loud? Let me know if it is, by the way. It seems stranger still that it's gone now, doesn't it? Are you upset with me? No, Hedwig. I'm actually hoping you'll help me now. I'm trying to decide how scared I should be. I'm not a very superstitious person, but when Catherine told me that wall had started crumbling, well, that made me nervous. I have a horrible suspicion that the ghost I keep seeing was, I don't know, summoned for that wretched carving. It does make a certain amount of sense in the back of your mind, doesn't it? Yes. You wouldn't lie to me about ghosts the same way you lie to me about sex, would you? Oh! It is a little loud? Okay, hang on. There you go. I was not lying about that! Margaret grinned wide. Very well. But you haven't been lying about this ghost of yours, have you? No. I would never. I could and would lie about many things. I am a liar. I am a liar. I am a liar. I'm a liar. I am a liar. I am a liar. I am a liar. I'm 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 a liar. I am a liar. A liar, a liar, a liar, a liar. Okay. I don't know how many more ways I can read this. Okay. All right, Hedwig. Come on. God, you need to get laid so bad. I apologize. That's what I thought, to be honest. How would you lie about something like that? I am a liar! I'm a liar! I've lied! I lie about everything! Why do you believe anything I've told you? Why are you listening to me? I have to lie to tell you this story. I have to act it all out. I have to pretend not to know things that I do know, that perhaps you already know as well. All in service of a story about what a failure I am, what a wretched animal I am. No point to it. There's no purpose to any of it at all. I'm sorry. I apologize. I must continue. I must continue. It's not a good story if it's easy to tell, is it? I would not lie about that, no. Consider who I am. That's what unnerves me about it. You're the most pious person here, so if you're seeing something utterly unexplainable, I should take it seriously. I suppose I do take it seriously. I don't know. I have an open mind. I've seen my share of strange things. I've seen too many things since leaving my cell to discount them. Shadows in the corner of my eye, strange figures in the distance, and then the night everyone thought I was playing a prank. Wasn't that Eustace? Oh, that's right, isn't it? I hastily tried to decide how to talk about the revelation that Eustace couldn't possibly have been my ghost. At least not all the time, about oversharing. Eustace was some of those, but there are times I've seen something and thought, that couldn't be her. Like if I've just, I don't know, seen her not a minute beforehand, or that's so cruel, Eustace wouldn't do that. Cruel? I was dangerously close to spilling details about Flora's attack. Margaret was sharp. I knew that if I put the idea of Flora running around in the walls and the idea of a ghost in her head, she'd draw a line between them at once. Oh, you know, the goat beheading I saw. The so-called prank. But that was Eustace. I think my mind was just playing tricks on me. You imagined a goat being slaughtered? That's a rather specific thing to dream up. Eustace insists. I mean, there was no blood or anything. That's true. Huh. How strange. Throwing rocks at old furniture had been entertaining, but idle conversation had given way to what felt like an interrogation. Fortunately, rescue was not far away. What in God's name are you two doing? Just a bit of fun. I was wondering what the bloody great racket was, and here I find you two destroying perfectly good furniture. It's not perfectly good furniture. It's all from the back room there. Broken and dusty and useless. That's not for you to decide. Oh, I have half a mind to tell the superior. Okay. Marta was looking forward to fixing some of that, I hope you know. Was she now? I could sense that Margaret was trying not to laugh. Charity turned her attention to me instead. And you! You should know better, dear. How can I defend you from nosy gits like Angela if I find you being a little monster like this? I'm sorry. As well you should be. Now clean this up, you two, before I drag you to the superior's office by your ears. Fair enough. She hopped down from the pile of rubble. I clambered down halfway before following suit. I pinned my skirt to my legs as I fell to the earth and nearly fell flat on my face without the use of my arms to balance myself. I was bright red as I stumbled to my feet, but Margaret was busy arguing with Charity. It's all been locked away in that stuffy old room for years. That doesn't mean it's yours! No, but it does mean that this shouldn't be an issue. Watch it! I'm going to come back in an hour, and if this isn't all cleared up by then, heaven help you! She stormed off. Margaret stifled a chuckle. What should we do with all the wood? Dunno, pile it up, I suppose. Maybe we can toss it in the firewood stores. Actually, that's a good excuse. If Charity brings us up again, let's you and me say that we were making firewood. That's a bit of a stretch. If we end up burning it, it'll be true in the end. Autem testis es repentinus concinat linguam mendaci, qui labium veritatis firmum erit in perpetuum, as they say. They do say that, chat. I can confirm that they do say that. It's true that they do say that. That is backwards! Margaret shot me another big mischievous grin. Close enough, though. I shook my head and sorted the scrap wood into a pile. It took well under the hour Charity had given us to complete our task. Margaret graciously handled most of the rocks, which she arranged neatly around the base of the rubble pile. When we were finished, she sat down, her back resting against the rubble, facing the entrance to the cloister. She gestured for me to join her. I sat down, pulling my knees up to my chest. Bit funny, isn't it? Somewhat of a wake-up call. Charity is more of a danger than any ghost. I know she's real at the very least. I have felt this since the day I've left my cell. I've been so worried about ghosts and devils and eternal punishment from on high. Because you left your cell? You must have broken some serious vows. Yes. Yet here you are. Here I am. She looked at me sideways. I find that admirable, you know. I'm not sure you should. Don't be modest. It'd be difficult for anyone to make a go of it after something like that. Everyone here has had a rough go of it at one point or another, but I don't think anything compares to being locked in a box for most of your life. I wouldn't put it that way. I've been wondering, was it really your idea to leave? Yes. Liar. See, that is admirable. You heard about Catherine and thought, I can make a massive sacrifice to help heal this wound. What do you mean? You know, stepping in to fill her role. That's rather selfless. You didn't even know her. Or us, for that matter. That is funny, isn't it? Well, could have found a new chronicler anywhere. Margaret laughed. Why on earth are you arguing of a compliment? I suppose I don't know. I'm not used to being complimented. Yeah? If I called you handsome, I bolted to my feet. I would say that's a highly inappropriate thing to say to me. Easy. She looked taken aback. I did feel a little bad. In truth, I would welcome a compliment from Margaret, but that wasn't what had put me out of sorts. I've heard those words before. Those exact words. Oh, that's funny. I wasn't really thinking about it. An old in-joke between Catherine and me. Catherine II, I mean. I felt ill. If you would please excuse me. I need to fetch something from the dormitory. Certainly. Did I offend you? I mumbled something unintelligible in reply and staggered off. God, the Catholic guilt is at fucking critical density right now. Critical mass Catholic guilt. Like, I thought Hedwig was already repressed before, but it's getting worse. So now the question is, when does it all break apart? When does it all fall apart, chat? Because she can't keep going on like this. What if I called you handsome? A joke? Between her and Catherine? I could barely see where I was going. I simply put one foot in front of the other as fast as I could. I bumped into someone on the stairs and slurred in apologies. I continued making my way towards the dormitory. After bursting through my door, I crashed onto my bed face first. A joke. A joke. A joke. What about me? I rolled over and stared at my ceiling. Why did this bother me so much? I sniffled. Tears were coming. So clearly I felt something. But what? Fear? Fear had more or less become my natural state. I'd heard Margaret's words before, whispered through the hagioscope. Words that embarrassed me, teased me, but had always felt genuine. What was this joke? Is it a joke about me? I imagined Catherine and Margaret sitting together in the Misericorde, illuminated by flickering candlelight. And that's when I asked her, what if I called you handsome? If only I could have seen the look on her face. I groaned. So much for redoubling my efforts to investigate Catherine's murder. I had the perfect opportunity to ask Margaret some real questions, and instead I had been blindsided by word choice. How useless I was. Once again, I was at my wit's end. I was being pulled apart by horses. The Superior, Sister Angela, Sister Eustace, and the looming threat of the demonic were all yanking my limbs. I could break at any moment. How pathetic. How many hours ago had I been filled to resolve? And now here I was, laid low by a few familiar words. I took a deep breath and shuddered. Perhaps I could find that resolve again. That kernel of determination. God's strength. My purpose. I thought about those horsemen. It was rather a miracle that the existence of that terrifying beast hadn't undone me entirely at this point, I thought. I suddenly felt very clever. It was strange, wasn't it? One of these threats was far more horrible than the others. My personal conflicts were quite petty compared to the creeping worry that a monster had been set loose in the Abbey. Why wasn't I afraid? Well, I was afraid. But I had not been driven stark raving mad. I still went about my day-to-day. There was that tiny light. There was my resolve. So small but bright. Omnia possum in eo qui me confortat. In recent days, I'd let some of the most basic, most elementary truths slip from my mind. They had been overshadowed by fear, worry, doubt, and new feelings that I could not quite identify. Lesbianism. Feelings like the one that overwhelmed me when Adela lesbianism. Well, if ever there was proof that all of that was sinful, this was it. Nothing that made less room in my heart for God could be of any value. I dried my tears. One tiny splinter of determination collected from the pile of debris in my head. What could I do with it? I wonder how many chapters there are. Determinate! We're playing Undertale now. I rapped my knuckles against the Superior's door so hard that it stung. I held my workbook in my other hand, gripped so tight the cover might have bent. Who is it? Sister Hedwig. Muffled voices. Then the door opened. The Superior ushered me into her office quickly. In the fading light, I could see the bishop was seated in my usual chair. He smiled at me. I nodded in return. Is something amiss? No. Well, yes. There is much amiss. But, well, the pair of them looked at me expectantly. Specifically, I want to talk about the night Catherine died. Without invitation, I stepped forward to the superior's desk and placed my book down. I flicked to an empty page. I think the best thing I can do right now to put this to rest once and for all is to gather as many stories as I can and compare them. Everyone has told me bits and pieces of what they remember, but there can only be one truth, so if I collect everything and find the contradictions... The superior and the bishop were both looking at me slightly wide-eyed. Is this smart to be doing while the bishop is here? You had not been doing this already? Well, not this thoroughly, no. The bishop rubbed his beard. I was not here, of course. But Mabel has told me the story several times. There's not much to tell. If there was any thread I could follow, I might not have needed to release Hedwig from her cell. You were in a meeting with Angela, correct? May I borrow this quill? By all means. I hastily labeled the map I had drawn. Can you give me more details? Sister Angela was arguing with me about her job, naturally. The bishop chuckled. She is passionate. If you would like to take her off my hands, you are welcome to. Can you be even more specific? Just in case Angela's story doesn't line up, you know. Are you really going to be asking everyone like this? That's no good. The whole reason I pulled you out of your cell was to do this work discreetly. I cannot think of an alternative, Superior. I've tried my best being subtle, but fishing for all of that information would simply take too long. Years, perhaps. Besides, I have a plan. Really now? I am the chronicler of this abbey, and I have been fulfilling my duty, but there is a gap in our history, isn't there? The night Catherine died. Well, and the days beyond until I took my quill up in the library. But the night a beloved sister died has no written record. That's not right, is it? That should be recorded. So, that's my plan. I want to ask everyone about the missing day so I can fill it in. And then, perhaps, I can find the truth. It's the best idea I've heard yet, Mabel. Those girls aren't stupid. They will catch on very quickly. What is there to catch on to? Young Hedwig here won't be lying. She'll just have a hidden purpose. And if there is someone who recognizes that ulterior motive, then they will act accordingly and reveal themselves. I am understanding your plan correctly, yes, young Hedwig? More or less. If a sister with something to hide feels as if Hedwig is breathing down her neck, she will be very easy to spot. And if our suspected killer remains none the wiser, then the truth will reveal itself when all the stories have been compared. You are a clever one, Hedwig. Do you really believe that this is the only way forward? Yes, Superior. I've been doing my utmost. There's only so much I can ask. It could take years to piece everything together. We don't have years, do we? I looked between the Superior and the Bishop. For a moment, I hoped their answer would be yes. We do not. I suppose we don't, do we? How good of an actor are you, Hedwig? Well, I haven't been found out yet, have I? Not as far as we know, no. It is not my preferred course of action, but I see precious few alternatives. Very well, Hedwig. Ask your questions. The morning Catherine's body was discovered, you and Angela were arguing. In here? Yes, it was very early in the morning. It could be described fairly as late night. Is there anything specific about the argument worth noting? Sister Angela and I had a disagreement about appropriation of funds. It is her right as prioress to check me on such matters, I suppose. And then Sister Charity knocked on your door. Yes. We three went to confirm the body. Then Angela escorted Charity back to the dormitories. I told her to wake up Moira. Then she returned with both Moira and Eustace in tow. You didn't ask for Eustace? No, but I'm glad Angela brought her. Her help was invaluable. Angela began a cursory search around the abbey for the culprit while Moira, Eustace, and myself carried Catherine's body into the chapel. Once the body had been moved, I sent Eustace to wake the rest of the sisters so a full search could begin. What did you do? Moira and I stayed with the body and examined it. Well, Moira examined it, and I stood watch. Then what happened? There was a long wait. Finally, Angela dragged the mail carrier in on his ear. She said she had found him hiding in some shrubbery. Moira, Angela, and I escorted him to the hospitalum via my office so I could retrieve the keys. It was a long and very unpleasant walk. I returned and immediately penned a letter to the diocese, and... The bishop nodded sagely. Here we are. Thank you, Superior. I am still not totally convinced you will be able to pull these details so readily from the others. What else is there to do? I do not know. She sighed heavily. Therefore, take my blessing. Inform Sister Angela as soon as you can. She should be pleased to hear this. I know for a fact that Angela would be most upset by my insistence on writing things down, but I hope that my initiative would at least placate her. I closed my workbook and made for the door. Thank you, Superior. I will begin right away. Oh, before you leave, our newest oblates are arriving soon. Indeed. What will you tell them if they notice you asking around? You intend to keep them in the dark? I assume they will be curious, but I'm not sure how best to tell them. You can't hide the fact that a sister died here. News will get out sooner or later. Of course! I wouldn't dream of hiding it from them forever, but they might be put off seeing all this unfolding in front of them as soon as they arrive. Hedwig's so eager to impress Angela. You're fucking delusional, Claire. Come on! Come on, Claire! This is not an argument I wanted to have a hand in. If they ask me, I will tell them the truth. After all, I am the chronicler. I am simply filling a gap in our Abbey's history. I suppose that is all you can do. Goodbye, Hedwig. I bowed and exited the office. That was one down. The easiest one, I supposed. How to proceed? The Superior was correct. This would be far more suspicious than my behavior thus far. Eustace, for one, would see right through me. I felt slightly queasy thinking about her. I wasn't just breaking my promise to her, I was practically mocking it. I only hoped God would forgive me for this. Justice for Catherine was more important than my friendship with a woman who was holding her death over me. I would save Eustace's story for last, then. Maybe I could at least hide my broken promise from her for a week. I began to walk idly throughout the cloister. Perhaps I would run into someone and strike up a conversation, and quickly strike another interview off my list. I thought back on the Superior's story. It revealed very little that I did not already know, but at the very least it provided some sense of shape. A good foundation of stone to build on. My thoughts veered off course. I thought about the clock tower. I had no idea what to imagine. I had never seen a clock, and beyond steeples in the tallest corners of Lynbarrow, I had only read about towers. What purpose could it serve? Bells provided all of the structure I needed around time. Before I had left my cell, my body had been perfectly attuned to the hours. A more precise manner of telling time than the sun and sky just felt superfluous to me. Well, I suppose I could understand the need for an hourglass. But those mark out a very specific amount of time from a chosen point. They don't loom over the day. Do you not just eat when you are hungry? Sleep when you are tired? Pray when it is time to pray? As I wandered around the cloister, these silly thoughts bounced around my head instead of more pertinent questions about the investigation. Oi, Hedwig! Oh my goodness! Hello again, Sister Margaret? I've called you twice now. You're off in your own little world. Yes, I was distracted. I thought you were just going to get something from the dorms. Are you sitting out here waiting for me? I was. I apologize. I think all that exercise might have worn me out. My head has been elsewhere. Really? That's a relief. I was worried you were upset with me. I was. But that was not a conversation I could have right now. No, I actually wanted to talk to you about something important, and I didn't know quite how to approach it. Oh? Yes, something you said earlier reminded me of Sister Catherine. Catherine II. And, well, I've had this question gnawing at me for a while, seeing as I stepped into her role as chronicler. How to cover the day she died in my writings. Oh. Just because, as it stands, there's a gap between when she stopped writing and I began. And that is a fairly significant gap. There's no pleasant way for me to write about it, but I feel as if I must. She meant so much to everyone here. Whoa. Yes, that would have me walking around distracted as well. What I went to get from the dorms was a book. I'm writing down everyone's accounts and then I'll sort of, I don't know, combine them all. Unfortunately, I'm not sure I can say much helpful. I was asleep when it happened. Eustace came around banging on doors and I rolled out of bed and began hunting around the west side of the Abbey with a few other sisters. Do you remember who? It was a bit of a blur. I think Adela and Angela? Angela found James? You were there when that happened? Not near her, no. There weren't many of us and there was a lot of ground to cover. We'd all spread out to search. When I heard Angela shouting, I remember being close to the outer wall. Near the path out towards the hospitalum? Yeah. Is there anything else important you can remember? Not about Catherine's death, no. That's not all that happened that day, though. I don't know, everything the day before was fairly normal. She wouldn't have had a chance to write about that either since she died before. I think that's worth writing down. Her last day was a normal day. A pleasant day. As far as I know, at least. We'd even chatted the night before in the Misericorde. What did you talk about? I don't mean to pry, but you're right. There's something more pleasant that I can make sure gets recorded about that day. We'd been talking about her plans for the future. She had big ideas. I could see that Margaret's eyes were glassy. Thank you, Margaret. This was a big help. I'll make sure it gets written down. I'd appreciate that. Are you really going to ask everyone? If I can. I'd be careful. Some people might be touchy. She wiped her face with her sleeve. I will be as gentle as I can be. I do think this is important, though. I think you're right. But by God, it's going to hurt. Just take it slow, yeah? That was not an option. I will do my best. Right. I'll be off then. I apologize for making you wait out here for so long. Not at all. She gave me a weak smile, then wandered off. I was left to my own devices on the cloister path again. I watched Margaret disappear around a corner and suddenly felt very nervous. I don't think Margaret said anything contradictory there. Not that I could tell, at least. Well, I'm really bad at spotting contradictions and mysteries and stuff until it's like pointed out to me. Undoubtedly, she would tell the other sisters what had just occurred. First Catherine, of course, then Catherine would loudly complain about it to whoever would listen. And then others would hear. Some would get offended and refuse to talk to me. I would be forced to spend the rest of my life as an outcast in the Abbey, only exchanging polite, meaningless smiles of women who hated me. Unless, of course, Catherine's killer overheard Catherine and Margaret complaining about my little scheme and then... Whoa. Fucking jump scares. I began to sprint down toward the path Margaret had walked down. Perhaps I could catch her, beg her not to tell anyone what I had asked her. Oh God, I hoped it was not too late to give it all up. Swear that I'd realized this was all a terrible idea. But she was gone. I realized I was halfway up the stairs and slowed down. I had no idea where she had gone. Perhaps the dorms, perhaps the library, but I knew that she was nowhere I could make a private appeal. I slowly climbed the rest of the stairs in a daze and staggered toward my room. I could hear Margaret talking as I entered the dormitory hallway. She was standing with Moira and Catherine, already partway through some conversation. They all looked at me as I passed. Margaret offered a small wave. I raised my hand weakly as I stumbled through my door. I collapsed onto the bed. That little sliver of determination was going to get me killed. Hedwig? I awoke to Moira's touch on my shoulder. I bolted upright in bed, pulling my knees up to my chest. Moira! Oh, I apologize for barging in. Dinner is happening in the rectory, and everyone got worried when you didn't turn up. I wasn't sure if you were napping or ill. I didn't mean to make anyone worry. I was just exhausted. I understand. Busy day? You could say so. Well, not too busy. In fact, I had a lot of spare time. But I felt so drained all the same. I briefly chatted with Margaret and then very strongly felt the urge to sleep. Moira chuckled. I can't say I relate. Margaret never bores me. Oh, no. I was not bored. Ah, a difficult conversation? Yes, how did you know? Margaret seemed a little out of sorts. Pensive, you know. I groaned. I had no intention of upsetting her. I'm sure you didn't. Whatever you were talking about, you couldn't have known. Perhaps you just reminded her of something unpleasant. I don't want to remind anyone of unpleasant things. It just happens. It's impossible to know for certain what could set people off. I used to upset Catherine terribly by talking about paintings I'd seen before taking my vows. Really? Catherine the First? Aye. We used to spend a lot of time grousing about missing our old lives. And I would say, oh, how I miss sitting for portraits. And Catherine would get all sullen. That's right, Catherine came from a noble family. That's something that she probably has experience with. Nothing to do with me, of course. I tried apologizing for it, but she insisted it wasn't really my fault. I'm sure whatever you and Margaret were talking about was perfectly fine. Or rather, maybe not perfectly fine. But you can trust that she knows whatever thought you accidentally put in her head, you didn't mean to. You couldn't have known. I certainly hope so. Hedwig. Moira looked surprisingly serious. I was taken aback. You always say, I hope so, when I'm right about something. It's like you want me to be wrong. I don't mean that. I'm sure it's not on purpose. But you should trust me. I'm good at these things. Trust Margaret and trust me. Very well. I stood up and stretched. These naps were not doing my body any good. Are you hungry at all? Do you want to come down for the end of supper? I don't think so. I think I might do some writing or some such. Well, I won't nag you. Could I keep you company for a moment? Certainly. I'm just sitting here wondering who's the one that's gonna get Hedwig in the end, you know? Place your votes! Place your votes, chat! Who's the one that's gonna get Hedwig? Moira has been spending private time. But Adela was the one that made a move. Moira sat down on the bed across from me. You know, if you're not hungry now, I think there's room in the Misericorde tonight. Oh? Let me think. Myself, Margaret, Catherine, Adela, and Eustace are the only ones who have committed, I think. So yes, you should join us. Well, another night of debauchery was the last thing I wanted, and the thought of sharing space with Adela was deeply embarrassing. On the other hand, it was a perfect opportunity to ask several sisters about the night Catherine died. You already know? No, I really don't think Angela is gonna get her. I'm pretty sure Angela is also incredibly homophobic. I mean, then again, Moira mentioned that it was just the superior that they were keeping all the gayness a secret from. She didn't say she was keeping the gayness a secret from, Angela. I wonder. I sighed and steeled myself. If only I could conjure the sense of strength that holding the sword that evening in the cellars imbued in me. Why not? Hopefully none of Eustace's pranks this time. She'll be there, so you and I can keep an eye on her. I chuckled weakly. Well, we have at least an hour. I don't know about you, but I'm aching all over. Have you had a busy day? Busy week, more like. A busy month, busy year, a busy life with not much to show for it, I'm afraid. You have plenty to show for it, surely. Is there anyone as accomplished as you here? Aside from Darcy, I suppose. I appreciate that. Or quite right. But sometimes I think about what life would be like if I'd ended up somewhere a mite more prestigious. There are abbeys out there doing really advanced work, medical journals, surgeries, that sort of thing. I would faint if I were within a mile of a surgery. Oh, you were within a mile of a surgery. You were in the same room as a surgery, Hedwig. Angela will fumble. I have no belief in her. Fumbling Hedwig? If you fumble someone like Hedwig, you just, like, unceremoniously no-clip out of this reality, because that is how much you have failed. Oh, it took me a long time to get used to the sight of blood and guts. Just those words make me quite ill. What's the most horrible thing you've ever seen? I couldn't help but let rotten images flash through my mind. The sensation of Flora's leg knocking against my side, a fish's skull cracking against the side of a bucket, the quickest glimpse of a goat's head leaving its body as a sword swung through it, insect crawling through slimy innards, pale, waterlogged skin. I shivered. My imagination could not be allowed to run wild this way. In all honesty, Flora's leg might be the most harrowing image I've witnessed. Oh, yes. It's a miracle it's still attached at all. If you hadn't been there, she would have certainly lost it forever. Although between you and me, there's a very good chance we'll still need to amputate it. If I can be grave for a moment, I keep thinking to myself, maybe that would have been better. We did a lot of extra work when a quick, clean cut above the knee probably would have sufficed. I'm sure she's grateful to have both legs still. If she recovers properly, I say properly, but it's more like if she has a miraculously good recovery. If she ever walks again, it'll be with a limp for the rest of her life. Is that so bad? Moira giggled pleasantly. You have such a way of cutting through my worries, Hedwig. You are right, of course. It would be better to limp forever than not walk at all. We sat in silence for a moment. I hope you don't think I look down on the crippled. I used to work at an abbey much closer to a castle, you know. Lots of soldiers would come in with the most horrible injuries you can imagine. I've chopped legs off before, you know, and arms. I've cut away mangled genitals crushed by horses, too. Holy shit. Jesus Christ, Moira! I've even scooped out damaged eyes. Enough! I'm going to retch if you don't stop. Oh, I'm so sorry, Hedwig. All I mean to say is, I've seen what life is like without a limb or two. It's a lot harder. People can be very cruel. There's not much work out there for crippled men. Maybe even less for crippled women. Well, Flora's in service to the Lord in an abbey, isn't she? She'll make do no matter what. I've always wondered if she'll stay here. Of course she will. One can't just leave. See, that's just the thing. One can just leave. You can leave whenever you like, in fact. It'll be hard, no doubt. Asking for official permission from the Pope, mind you. Those are very slim chances and could take years if it did happen. But leaving? Just leaving? That can be done as quick as you like. But finding a life outside of the Abbey? No easy task, to be sure. And much harder for someone like Flora, who would marry her without a leg. No wealthy suitor, that's for certain. But she could leave. If she was pushed far enough, she could leave. Nobody could stop her. She might die in a ditch a few weeks later, but she could leave. Goodness, I keep saying such grim things. I really do not mean to be so gloomy, Hedwig. I just have a lot of these thoughts that I haven't been able to share. It's no trouble. She nodded at me, and I realized her lips were trembling. Her eyes were glassy. I've just got too much going on. I sat there feeling very stupid. I feel like if I stopped moving, I can't keep all these thoughts at bay. What can I do for you? She laughed through her sniffles. You're meant to hug me, silly. Oh. I acquiesced, bewildered. Kiss! 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 I stepped forward and did my best to wrap her in my arms. She pulled me into her shoulder. It was warm, and bending down to meet her on the edge of the bed was slightly uncomfortable. Just a moment. I clambered her awkwardly into a more comfortable position. It was difficult, as she was still clinging to my torso all the while. Once I was more comfortable, I returned to Moira's embrace, wrapping my arms gingerly around her back. See? Isn't this nice? I suppose it is. She adjusted, turning her back to me and nestling into my pillow, leaving me with my arms dangling around her neck and shoulders as I lied next to her sideways. Are they spooning? A little nap before we head to the Misericorde sounds divine. I can feel those aches melting away. Oh, that'd be good. One of my arms was pinned to the bed by her body, but I didn't want to disturb her. I tried my best to relax, somewhat bewildered by the position I found myself in. At the very least, I did not feel as off-kilter as I had when Adela had nestled close to me by the fire some nights ago. Save for my arm, which was beginning to tingle. Moira? Moira? I could hear a gentle snore. I dared not fall asleep myself, lest I miss the opportunity to prod everyone about the night Catherine was murdered. I cursed myself for failing to ask Moira before she dozed off. Well, I suppose there would be time enough soon. Don't ask her when she's fucking crying, Hedwig! Come on! She's spooning a girl in her bed right now. But totally not gay, by the way. I adjusted my arm as best as I could without waking Moira and watched the light outside slowly fade. Eventually, I could hear people moving about and chattering outside my door, and I could sense the energy of preparation. I shook Moira's shoulder as softly as I could. I think it's time. Oh, goodness me, did I fall asleep? Yes. Oh no, I was just so comfortable. I hope I didn't trap you in your bed. It was no trouble. We should probably get up. Indeed. Would you mind stepping out first? Her voice had dropped to a low whisper. Just for, plausible deniability. Oh! People are gonna think they were oh my god! You know how Catherine and Margaret are. I have a reputation to maintain. I'd never hear the end of the jokes if we stepped out together. You think that they might think? They've thought worse on less evidence. I nodded and climbed over Moira to leave. I opened and closed my door as surreptitiously as I could, making sure nobody in the hall would be able to look into my room. Luckily, only Eustace remained in the hall. She was leaning down, examining the hearth, looking as if she'd lost something. Oh, good evening. Greetings! I am joining you all in the Misericorde tonight. Is that so? Yes. And? Well, I don't know. I thought you might be happy to hear that. Oh, certainly. Sorry. My mind is elsewhere. Could I help? No. She sighed and stood up. Come on. Might as well head on over. I followed her lead out into the hall. There was a slight smell of smoke on the landing. Adela was lighting the torches. Eustace wrinkled her nose. Ah, my friends! I will be joining you in the Misericorde as soon as I have finished lighting all of the torches. She was as chipper as always. I tried my best to smile. I wondered if she felt as oddly as I did about spending an evening with me in that little room. Eustace opened the Misericorde door and ushered me in. Margaret and Catherine were already seated at the center table with a half-empty wineskin resting between them. Hedwig! What a delightful surprise! I seem to recall your first night in here was cut short. Although for the life of me, I don't remember why. Eustace rolled her eyes and refused to take the bait. Tonight is us four, Adela and Moira, yes? That's what I heard. Where is Moira? In the dorm still, I think. She said something about needing a nap last I spoke to her. Ah. And Adela is just finishing up lighting the torches outside. Wonderful. I'll be able to stumble back to bed with no trouble. Catherine poured some wine into an empty cup and gestured towards me. Here, Hedwig. Rejoice! You're going to be in relatively noble company tonight. Is that so? She's just happy Sister Angela is absent. That makes me sound so conceited. Does the absence of a cold-hearted shrew, 2 old hags, and a wheelbarrow make me happy? No! The presence of my dear friend Margaret and the rest of this esteemed company makes me happy. I think that's a far better way to look at things. Cheers. She raised her cup. Catherine downed the rest of her own drink and began pouring another. Eustace, do you know if Darcy's cooking anything for us? No, actually. I forgot to mention that. She's getting a little anxious about supplies and doesn't want to cook anything extra. Boo! Aren't we due several more deliveries before it gets snowy? 1, at least. But I can't blame her for wanting to be conservative at the moment. We've got 2 new oblates on the way, winter looming. Not to mention all those builders whenever they turn up. They'll be bringing their own supply, surely. As far as I'm aware, yes, that is their responsibility. Eustace shrugged. I'm just the messenger. Indeed. Well, perhaps we can just go raid the pantry later. Oh, yes. You'll be singing a different tune after you get peckish. We'll see. Eustace stepped forward and Catherine began to pour her a cup. The door opened and in stepped Adela and Moira. Hello, everyone. We all raised our cups towards the new arrivals. What a wonderful turnout we have tonight. Just the young ones. Well, not the youngest. Catherine's a stretch, too. Catherine smacked Margaret's shoulder in a way that alarmed me, but the pair of them seemed to be in good spirits. What are we doing this evening? No plans. Other than a pantry raid. I misread that at first. We are not raiding the pantry. We're raiding the pantry. We're I I love these chapter transitions. Very cool. Catherine smirked. I think the voters have spoken, Cicero. Ugh. Right, chess until then. I'm not particularly interested in playing myself, but I wouldn't mind watching these two go at it. She waved her cup between Moira and Adela. I am willing, as long as my opponent respects the rules and the spirit of the game. Of course. Everyone began shuffling furniture around to accommodate the pair of them. I tried my best to help, although I seem to recall that anytime I moved towards a chair or barrel, someone else was already there. Eventually, I held back, not wanting to continue getting in the way. Adela and Moira sat across from each other and started to play. The conversation in the room began to blend into nothingness in my ears. I watched the game idly with my back against the wall. I struggled to get comfortable. I adjusted and readjusted my stance, unable to stand completely still, always shifting to touch another part of the wall with my back or my hand. My behavior must have been very concerning, because upon catching my eye, Margaret furrowed her brow and walked towards me. What are you doing all the way over here, Hedwig? There's a spare seat, you know. Oh no, I'm quite comfortable here. As long as you aren't feeling left out. Before I could ask what on earth she meant by that, she turned away and walked back to her chair. As far as I could tell, Adela was making strong headway against Moira. Spirits were much higher, it seemed, than they had been in their previous game. Adela was loud and determined, but was far happier in her boasting than she had been the night she had flipped the table over in frustration. Moira, too, was in a fine mood. She appeared to be having a grand time, even though she was losing. She laughed as she acquiesced to each of Adela's attacks, and narrated all of her own moves with charming commentary. I tensed my thighs in frustration, the stone all rough enough to feel on my skin through the fabric of my frock. I wished I could be like them. Talking to people was so easy for all of my sisters. What did they have that I lacked? They fuck each other! They literally fuck each other. That's a start! If I laughed like Moira did every time she realized one of her own chess mistakes, everyone would look at me like as if I were deranged. And I wasn't good enough at chess to play the role Adela was filling for the room then. I had no skills that would make onlookers curious, nor did I have the gravitas to command a room with words alone. I watched the chess game and smiled when it was time to smile, laughed when it was time to laugh, and nodded whenever someone made an agreeable observation. A passive participant, a reactive presence, a response, but never a call. I could have done it forever if I had to. Man, I get this feeling. I really get this feeling. Which, you know, might be a little strange for a streamer to say, but, you know. Eventually, however, there was a knock at the door. Eustace left her seat to answer, enduring light jeers from the others. Well, we know it won't be a ghost. Very funny. The door swung open, but I could not see who had knocked. After a moment, however, Eustace turned and beckoned me over. Laura wants to ask you something. Oh! Flora's wheelbarrow was set sideways in the hallway. Darcy stood behind her, holding the handles and smiling placidly. I slipped outside the door and Eustace closed it behind me. Did you need something, Sister Flora? Yeah, I was wondering if I could borrow some of your paints. My paints? No, your inks and temperas and stuff. Oh, what for? Want to paint something? You were talking about art, and I remembered you would illuminate manuscripts and that we must have stocks of paint and ink somewhere. Indeed. I suppose I'd already been volunteered to help Flora learn to draw. I thought about my temperas, the deep blue, the beautiful gold leaf, the fine red that would need multiple coats. I sighed. I had no reason to hold on to them. I can give you the rest of what I had in that box I brought to your first lesson, and I could ask the superior where the rest is. I would receive replacements here and then, and I assume must be kept in a cupboard somewhere. You can have them as long as you promise to save some for our lessons, yes? Really? I mean, yeah, of course. I can do that. I was taken aback by Flora's expression. I had seen her smile before, but there wasn't a trace of mischief or sarcasm on her face. Then if you wait here, I can run and get you that box in my room. See, I told you. Hedwig is nice. Yeah. Hedwig is nice. I jogged past the stairs to the dormitory and through my door. I had left the box on the thus far empty shelf next to the writing desk, in the same position it would have been on the shelf in my old cell. I opened it to inspect the colors. There's a decent variety here. Blues, reds, yellows, whites, even some gold leaf. I removed one container of black ink that I set atop my writing desk next to the one I had already been using, just in case. I closed the book and turned to leave. Book box. However, on the way out, I noticed that my bed was in complete disarray. The covers were scrunched up into a ball, and to my dismay, there was a large wet patch on my pillow. Huh? Moira? Had Moira managed to spill something in my room? Moira? What were you doing in here? Moira! I hastily rearranged the covers and flipped the pillow over. I suppose it was only fair that Moira be forgiven for making a mess in my dorm. Or, no, maybe those are tears, actually. Never mind. I went cold thinking about the ink bottle I'd accidentally smashed in her room, the one that the cat had miraculously eaten the blame for. I could not chastise Moira too harshly. The other cheek, and so forth. I walked quickly back to the landing, where Darcy and Flora were waiting patiently. So, this girl needs help! This girl needs some fucking help! She is doing too much! Well, you know what, actually? I guess we were kind of talking about how Moira is too perfect. She is putting on a mask of not, like, of it not bothering her at all, but she's, like, clearly barely holding it together, huh? Here's something to get you started, at least. Without thinking, I plopped the box onto Flora's lap. Ow! Sorry. It's alright. She opened the box and took stock of the contents. You said the Superior would... She sounds like she might leave? You know, considering what she was talking about, that's not a bad guess. You said the Superior would be able to tell you where more was, yeah? I would imagine, yes. Is that not enough? No, this is good. Definitely enough for now. She smiled at me again, and I smiled back. There was an awkward silence until Darcy cleared her throat. Oh, yeah, thanks, Hedwig. Darcy smiled serenely. You're welcome, Flora. What are you going to make? It's a surprise. For everyone but you, I suppose. But I need to practice first. Of course. Is that all? Yeah. Very well. I'll just get back to it then. Darcy shook the barrow gently as I turned to leave. Thank you again, Hedwig. I smiled over my shoulder and re-entered the Misericorde. Everyone turned sharply to glare at me as soon as I stepped through the threshold. You're supposed to knock first. My apologies. We're winding you up, Hedwig. Mostly. Even so, knocking is a good habit around here. Who knows what we might have been up to? What the hell does that mean? Of course. Here, allow me to demonstrate. That really is not necessary. Nonsense! I remember when you were bewildered by stairs. There's no shame in needing a quick refresher on common courtesy. She marched towards the door, a whimsical expression on her face. Simply raise your knuckles like so and rap them against the door thusly. Once again, for good measure, the door swung open. Hello. What? I thought you needed something. You knocked. Darcy, I love you forever. Darcy, you own my entire heart. No, just a joke. Well, it's a joke. It would take too long to explain. Very well, then. Bye! Catherine rolled her eyes and closed the door, then rejoined the others. So, what did Flora need? Oh, I suddenly remembered what Moira had told me about Catherine and paintings. Not wanting to spoil the mood, I remained vague. She just had a question about her last art lesson. Her only art lesson, you mean? Well, yes. Catherine had no way of knowing that I was doing this for her benefit, so I ignored the jab. I was annoyed, though. Was Flora complaining about me whenever it was Catherine's turn to push the wheelbarrow? Well, never mind all that. Is there another wineskin? I think this one is nearly out. You only brought one? I told you, Darcy has been a bit anal about supplies recently. So we're just meant to sit idly twiddling our thumbs for the next few hours? Well, it sounds like it's time to go on that pantry raid then. No! Yes! Oh, what fun! Everyone turned toward me. Well, why not? Everyone except Eustace whooped and clapped. Then it is settled. Margaret will lead the way, of course. Right you are. I suddenly came to the realization that I had made a very poor decision. I'd been so swept up in the moment that I hadn't thought about the logistics of the night at all. I was here to extract very specific information from everyone present. What if we got caught? What if this expedition took all night and everyone was too tired to do anything but pick over their ill-gotten wares and eat when we returned to the Misericorde? Oh, I was such a fool. Darcy is with Flora, yeah? One would assume. It seemed as though Darcy was spending the evening with her, yes. Perfect. That makes this fairly straightforward. Hedwig, can I borrow that book? I realized I'd been clutching my workbook to my chest this whole time. I panicked for a moment, but reasoned that Margaret had already seen it. Everyone would have to know what this book was for, at least what I would tell them it was for eventually. Gingerly, I handed it to her. I nearly retracted my hands when I remembered Eustace was watching, but it was too late. Margaret had already taken book from my hands. The book! She flipped it open and set on the chess table. Does anyone have a... Oh, I've already drawn a map. What on earth for? She's been collecting stories about the night, you know? She could fill in the gap in her chronicles between that and when she started. A bit of a eulogy, in a way. That is a very sweet idea. I barely heard this compliment. Eustace was peering at me strangely over her glasses. I swear I could see her trying to steady her breathing. So, we are here, and the cellars are down here. Shocking revelations. My understanding of the Abbey has been altered completely. Hush. The easiest way to get to the pantry is to simply head down the stairs and hope nobody asks us what we're doing on the way. But that is also the boring way. Forgive me for asking, but is the pantry not in the kitchen? There's a pantry in the kitchen, but that's where food for the upcoming days is kept. Darcy moves ingredients from the cellar pantry to the kitchens as needed. She would notice instantly if we took from the kitchens, and, well, it would be a bit annoying. Darcy would have to go stock up from the cellars. Or she'd punish us by cooking very small meals. Are we sure this is a good idea? I mean, if it's all the same food, there's plenty of food in the cellars, and we're mostly going to be pinching salted meats, dried fruit, biscuits, etc. Easily replaceable. We do this all the time, Hedwig. It must be stressed that this barely registers as a crime. It's one of our funny little games, really. Pretending we might get in trouble is half the fun. I'm afraid I don't understand. The thrill of transgression without any true danger of punishment. A light drubbing from the superior at worst. I was beginning to understand why the superior was so frustrated with these women. Truly, it seemed like her authority amounted to nothing at all. I glanced around the others. Eustace was still regulating her breathing, staring at some point on the wall past me. Very well. I can play along. Good. So, we head out of the Misericorde. We dip into the library and head to the shelf on the right that has Catherine II's plays and things on it. No, we do not. I'm sorry? We don't do that. We're not going through the library. But behind that shelf, I know what's behind that shelf. I'm the sacristan, and I say no. No mucking about in the library. Goodness, it's just a bit of fun. For one thing, it would take twice as long as just walking down the stairs. Well, yes, but this isn't about efficiency. What is this chibi Moira? All right, it'd be fun to show Hedwig and Adela some of the passages, that's all. You can do that on your own time. Margaret looked bewildered. Very well, then. So that makes me wonder what's back there, huh? Is Eustace trying to hide something? Well, Hedwig, you know the drill as well as the rest of us, then. We're going to crawl through that false barrel in the cellar. Unless Eustace would prefer to just walk to the pantry door. Leave it. Let's have some fun, yeah? Yes! Margaret snapped my book shut and everyone began following her to the door. I reached out to grab it, but Eustace corralled me towards the rest of the group before I could. Oh, shit. No. We spilled out onto the landing. It was quite dark outside now, save for the flickering torchlight. Darcy and Flora are elsewhere, it seems. Good. Shh. Margaret began to creep somewhat theatrically towards the stairs down to the lower halls. The others followed suit, getting into the act of enthusiasm. We all skulked down the stairs and into the cloister. Margaret hugged the wall, and we all sidled along behind her to the entrance to the cellars. There was an air of mockery about the whole enterprise. But even so, I couldn't help but stare at the Superior's door down the way and worry that it might swing open. Hold on, I think I hear something. We were as quiet as we could be. I could hear nothing but the breeze. Wait here. Margaret ducked down and slipped into the entrance, disappearing down the staircase. I shivered. Moira turned to face me, looked me up and down, and then giggled. She spoke in a tiny whisper. Are you cold, Hedwig? Yes, are you not? I am, but you look very cold. I furrowed my brow, unsure what she meant. Her eyes looked downward from mine, and I realized what she meant. I fumed and folded my arms across my chest. She started giggling so heartily that Eustace had to shush her. I'm not sure what she's talking about here. Oh! Her tits, right. Margaret whispered from up ahead. I think Charity and Marta might be down here. That wouldn't surprise me. I think they might be asleep. I hear snoring. Let's keep going. I wanted to protest. Surely 6 women crawling through a false barrel would make a lot of noise, but it was too late. Everyone was already following Margaret down the staircase. I felt Eustace's hands on my back pushing me forward. I followed after the others. It was almost pitch black down here, save for a flickering candle somewhere in the rows of casks. Margaret pointed towards the light. Over there, I reckon. It's bloody dark down here. Should we fetch a pricket? I know my way around. Just follow me. Margaret ducked to the right and began leading us through the barrels. I'd never realized just how maze-like it was down here. I was soon navigating on sound alone, keeping an ear out for shuffling fabric in front of me. For all I know, we were moving in circles. Every now and then a snore would echo throughout the cellar, and all movement would cease. What the fuck, man? It was during one of these pauses that something caught my eye. Through the rows of casks, I could see a painting propped up on an easel. I could not make out what it was in the dark, nor through the distance, but it made all my hair stand on end. Is that what Flora was walking on? I felt a sudden stab of regret. My precious materials were being wasted on crudity! The subject was recognizably human, but it was decidedly formless. It was dark, perhaps hooded. It reminded me of... we got the jump scares in this one. We got the jump scares in this one. Hedwig! I turned away from the strange painting and continued following Margaret's voice as best as I could. We crept along for a few more minutes, making as little noise as we could. Finally, our guide stopped. It's this one. Carefully, I saw her open the round door to the tunnel. The latch made a loud, dull clunk. She stopped for a moment, but the snoring had not stopped. There we go, everyone in. She ushered Catherine, Moira, and Adela in, then gestured towards Eustace and I. We'll join you in a moment. I just remembered I need to ask Hedwig something. Now? Yes. See you in a minute, then. She slipped inside the barrel tunnel. I could hear relaxed voices emanating from the pantry. I didn't even endorse this endeavor, but the joyful sounds coming from inside were so inviting compared to Eustace's cold stare. Oh! She yanked my sleeve to tug me away from the false barrel, then pinned me against a stack of real ones. I had only seen her like this once, in the garden the night Flora had gone missing. You made a promise, Hedwig. She spoke in a furious, hoarse whisper. Yes, I did, but a promise! Abominatio est domino labia mendacia. No? I believe I was very clear. You were, but... Eustace, you are not the only one I am beholden to on this matter. Who else? My God, how stupid are you? The Superior, of course. I cannot be idle, I just cannot. She demands results from me, and you demand passivity. I thought I could do both somehow. Both? What do you mean, both? Well, I lied. I lied to Margaret and told her I was asking her questions about the night Catherine was killed. I already told you what happened that night. Of course, but that wouldn't be enough. Enough to prove anything, one way or another. I've been telling people that I intend to fill a gap in between mine and Catherine's chronicles. Not just the night she died, but the days between. Nobody suspects a thing. So you are breaking your promise. That didn't take very long. Well, I wasn't going to ask you. Eustace looked at me the way one might regard a fly on their food. That's your attempt to split the difference? That's what you see us doing both? Well, I'm lying to them, but not entirely. I do intend to write those chronicles. Everyone will see them. They'll just also be helping me work out what happened to Catherine. Get it through your thick skull. James killed Catherine. You and I both know that's not true. It is what the truth has to be. Sometimes it's best to accept an uncomplicated lie than a complicated truth. You always speak in riddles about this. What is going on? Are you under threat? What do you know that I do not? Everything! As I've told you time and time again. Can't I help you? Is there something I can do to— No! No, there is not! You have proven that I cannot trust you, and if I cannot trust you, then I must move against you. What? You heard me. We are enemies now, and we will be until you stop meddling. What are you going to do to me? Please don't hurt me. Hurt you? By all rights, I should kill you! I let out an involuntary yelp, but Eustace silenced it with her hand. I should, but I will not have to, because I have knowledge sharper than any knife. I know why you are here. I struggled to speak through her hand. What do you mean? Don't push me. I know exactly why you were sent to this convent all those years ago. What the fuck? I know why you took those vows. I know why your family abandoned you. What the fuck? Well, this is new. I threw her off me in a rage. She collided with the cask behind her with a dull thud. Her glasses were knocked askew, and before I knew it, I was at her throat. Who is the liar here? You couldn't know those things because I don't know those things. Try me. There's nothing to know. Again, try me. She spoke in a rasp, and I realized my hand was clutched around her throat. I relented and stood up. I know that you remember. You must. Why else would you react like this? Because I don't suffer liars. And how do you live with yourself? She picked her glasses up and set them upon her face. You know, Hedwig, I've been protecting you from many things here. Some of them important, many of them trivial. Little things that would drive you slowly mad if you saw them. Things that would crack the walls of your righteous little mind. I'm done with all that now. You may do as you please, but understand that as you reap, you shall sow. I have always sought only to help, then help yourself. Accept the world as it is or suffer. Hello? Is someone there? The candlelight was moving. Eustace nodded towards the barrel tunnel and I obeyed. We scrambled inside as quietly as we could. We emerged into the pantry. The others appeared to be having a grand time picking through jerky, sausages, crackers, and all manner of other treats. Took you long enough. We could speak a little louder in here, although everyone was still somewhat hushed. I think we might have woken Charity by accident. We should stay in here for a bit. Wait for her and Marta to leave. Or pass on, which might take, oh, I don't know, 5 minutes? Everyone chuckled darkly. Are you well, Hedwig? She's fine. We were just chatting. I had some burning questions for her about TiraLyra. TiraLyra? Where she's from. Midnight seems a strange time to ask someone about the old days. Eustace picked up a bit of sliced sausage and bit into it with rancor. That was relevant. I wanted to know her opinions on German sausage before I picked anything to eat. I'll take your pick. The others were holding their frocks out to carry their piles of food. Eustace was already walking around the room, picking whatever she liked from the barrels and jars. What kind of secrets does Hedwig have? Did she forget them or does she repress them? Does Hedwig have repressed memories? I followed suit, but I was not hungry. My mind and heart were racing. Enemies? It was too much to bear. I had been indecisive for so long, surreptitious and quiet for so long. I had never wanted to make an enemy. In the back of my mind, there had always been a fear that moving too far in any direction would cause great scorn. Eustace felt like the worst possible foe I could have earned. I wanted to burst into tears and beg for forgiveness. and I wanted to wring her neck. More indecision. I tried to focus on picking enough meats and fruits to avoid suspicion. The last thing I needed was another Hedwig. Are you feeling well? Oh, what a miserable wretch I was. One tiny sliver of determination, one small light I had nurtured in my soul, and this is all it had earned me. After sneaking back upstairs, we whiled away the remaining hours in the Misericorde, eating our pilfered treats and chatting idly. I scarcely remember what was said, to be perfectly truthful. I dutifully fulfilled my role as a passive participant, as I had so many times. This time, however, I could not carry the mood all by myself. The jokes started to come slower, and the idle chatter became more inane. Eustace's foul mood was radiating outward, and Catherine had returned to acting rather odd. She would stare at the wall in between bits and pieces of conversation, occasionally nibbling at her food, but never leading the conversation the way she often would. Finally, Eustace stood up and brushed the crumbs off of her frock. Time for me to head out for the night, I think. I have some work to do before bed. Good night, then. Yes, good night. Everyone chimed in except me. I wasn't sure what to say. I was worried that any direct contact between Eustace and I would result in my fingers getting bitten off. Eustace left the room. When the door closed, everyone who remained exchanged pensive glances. I'm not mad, am I? Did I miss something happening with her? I didn't want to say anything. Or me. Most strange. All eyes fell to me. Well, we had an argument, I suppose, in the cellars. Oh? Whatever about? Oh, what I would give to leave and go to bed right this instant. I glanced at my workbook, still resting on the chess table. What could I say? I didn't dare push forward now, not tonight. I imagined Eustace might somehow burst through the wall between the library and the Misericorde if I so much as uttered one syllable of the truth. The fucking Kool-Aid, man. I don't know. You don't know what you were arguing about? No. That is to say, she seems very angry with me, and I do not understand why. That does sound like Eustace. This isn't the first time either. I remember things were quite tense between you when we rode down to the village. There tends to be a bit of friction when someone scares the living daylights out of people for a laugh. Honestly. Hedwig, when this happens in the future, you can simply tell us that Eustace is being a bitch. It's much faster than dancing around the matter. Moira snorted with laughter. It's true. Do you all not like Eustace? I adore Eustace. She is a conniving, heartless, ugly little know-it-all, but I am fond of her. We have to put up with each other here, no matter how annoying or strange we can be. What has Eustace so worked up, anyway? She was acting very strange about the clock tower news. That's somewhat warranted, at least. The last one collapsed right on top of someone. It did? It did indeed. Squashed the previous superior, in fact. Oh, this is news to me. Holy shit. Both Catherine and Margaret looked rather grave. It was horrible. We never did recover her body. I suppose there wouldn't be much to recover. How horrible! What happened? I must confess that I wasn't interested in finding any clues or connections to Catherine's death at this juncture. I was asking purely out of morbid curiosity. Well, Margaret looked impossibly grim. Must we? If you can. Hedwig and I live here after all. I, for one, would like to know the history. The previous superior was a bit reticent at first about building a clock. But I remember the prioress, our superior now, was extremely enthused about the prospect. Eustace was furious about it. Yes, she was. She'd tell anyone who would listen what a terrible idea it was, what a waste of money it was, and so on. What did everyone else think? Catherine wobbled her hand indecisively. If I may speak for everyone in the room, everyone who was there, naturally, we all liked the idea broadly at first. Catherine II was the most excited about it, if you can believe that. Catherine was excited about it? That sounds so unlike her, from what I have heard at least. Moira and Catherine looked surprised. Margaret told me all about Reem. Ah, yes, that was rather funny. Catherine II simply would not shut up about it. Anyway, Eustace was very, very torn up about the clock tower. And we like Eustace. Maybe not so much right now, but broadly speaking, of course. And I suppose her arguments were convincing. I think I mostly just wanted to stop hearing about it, so we rallied to her side. Yes, it was mostly a matter of supporting a friend. We tried to tell the superior, the dead one, that we opposed the idea, that we could use the money for something else, that we didn't need a bloody great clock in the middle of nowhere, and she was having none of it. The old superior and the current superior eventually got very, very excited about this clock. We finally got through to the former prioress. Goodness, this is confusing. Soup. We convinced Soup. We showed her that bits and pieces were already falling out of the clock. There were concerns about the craftsmanship. The old superior and Soup both wanted the tower completed as quickly as possible for whatever reason. This clock tower seems like the center of something big. What is going on with this fucking clock tower? Hubris. Reminds you of something, eh, Hedwig? Anyway, we finally convinced Soup that the project was a bad idea, or at the very least needed to slow down. The superior was naturally furious. It was so silly, so much anguish over a building. Then, one day, while Soup was trying to convince the superior that the building was dangerous, crash. Oh, it was a nightmare. Good God. It was instantaneous. One moment the superior was standing there, and then next, nothing but rubble. The pile of rocks beside the chapel is her body still underneath all that debris? Where else would she be? The builders packed up and left the same day. They didn't have the tools to dig her out. The body is still there. Chat, the body is still there! The Soup's first act as new superior was firing those men. Didn't even stop to think about giving the old superior a proper burial. Luckily, I found a fragment, a bit of bone and flesh knocked clear of the rubble. So we were able to bury her in a sense, up in the graveyard. The rest of her, well, she's just broken bones now, but I can assure you this smell lasted for months. Fuck! The smell! Surface in the chapel was unbearable. It was worse there, to be sure, but every now and then the wind would pick up and you'd get a whiff of rotting superior almost anywhere in the abbey. How horrid! A true haunting. That is a truly foul outcome. Eustace, I think, always felt a little guilty about the whole thing. So I am inclined, shall we say, to be forgiving when she acts like an insufferable cunt. Yes. Before Catherine II's passing, that was the great tragedy of the Abbey. It hit Eustace hard. How did Catherine react? I don't think she cared particularly. Certainly not as much as Eustace. Catherine was driven by something else at that point. Indeed. On to her next big idea as always. Honestly, the clock was always a bit of a distraction for her. She was enthused, but she was obsessed with another project while it was all unfolding. What project? Yes! You must tell us! Moira, Margaret, and Catherine all shared a look. Catherine looked particularly grim. I don't remember. It was always something or other. The superior's passing sort of overshadowed everything else. They know something. Oh, they know something. Indeed. Of course. And we were back to Catherine. All roads seemed to lead back to her and her mysterious preoccupations. I was desperate to know more, and certain that these three were hiding something. I'm certain of that. But as we left the Misericorde and returned to the dorms to say our goodbyes, I felt oddly satisfied. I was terrified of Eustace's wrath, of course, and I hadn't learned much about the night Catherine died. In fact, I wasn't sure how I could possibly learn anything more on that important matter. But something was building inside of me. I can only describe it as an uplifting paranoia. Eustace might be too touchy to approach directly, but what about Catherine, Margaret, and Moira? What had they been up to? Those furtive glances that they had exchanged were as valuable, if not more so, than any account I had heard about the night Catherine died thus far. As I fell into bed, I considered their strange expressions in my mind. Is that how I looked when I lied? Perhaps that's how obvious I had seemed to Eustace. Something to work on. I flipped my pillow over to fluff it. That spill had dissipated. The spill. I'd completely forgotten to ask Moira what on earth she had managed to do to my bedding. I sighed and turned the pillow over to the other side once more and nestled in for sleep. I could let it go. I had far more pressing inquiries for her. I drifted to sleep, feeling curiously proud of my own strategic thinking. It would not last, of course. I think this is a good end of stream for tonight. New tactics. You wonder if Eustace is so opposed to Hedwig's mission because she feels guilty about the clock tower or something? Well, I think... You know what I think? I think someone sabotaged the clock tower. And I think Eustace was aware of some bricks that had come loose. And she had pointed them out. I think it's very convenient that the clock tower happened to collapse while the superior was standing there. I think that was very convenient timing. I don't think the clock tower was an accident. I don't know why she's so opposed to this clock tower. But something tells me she had something to do with it falling. So now, Eustace is Hedwig's enemy. I wonder how that's gonna manifest. They're enemies now. Humpst. Humpst. And you know what? Next stream, I think we're gonna meet these new nuns too. Lots to think about, chat. Much to consider. All right. That is it for Misericorde tonight, chat. God, I wish I didn't have to stop, but unfortunately it is 10:20 p.m. and I must go to bed and such. Hey, what's this little drawing here, by the way, behind the chapter select? Is it perhaps a clock tower? Psst. Who knows? Have a good night, chat. More tomorrow. I'll see you all later. Bye-bye.